Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching 5th part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Ninjas from Another World. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Standing in front of the two enigmatic figures were Sarutobi Asuma and Yuhi Kurenai on a paved road beside a river bank, not far from Konoha. For a moment, they faced each other in silence, and then Asuma spoke. "You guys don't have a local appearance. Would you please explain your actions to me?" Of the two strangers, the shorter one spoke first. "Asuma, Kurenai, long time no see." Once more, the Leaf Ninja spoke. "So you are aware of who we are? Are you a native of this village and a shinobi?" The shorter stranger raised his hat to show off a distinctly Sharingan set of eyes. Kurenai and Asuma both backed off, looking surprised. "You." Sarutobi gave him a fierce look as the stranger removed his hat. "There's no doubt, Uchiha Itachi." The man had short black hair, a relaxed gait, and the appearance of his younger brother. The second stranger took off his mask and hat. "Well, since you are already acquainted with Itachi, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Kisame Hoshigaki." His skin was tinted gray, blue, and he had gill-like markings on his face, along with teeth and eyes resembling sharks. He carried a large, tightly wrapped sword around his shoulder that matched his height. Asuma grinned gloomily at them. "Nevertheless, you don't have to introduce yourself. All I have to do is look after the two of you." With a frown, Maeda Guy hurried to the river's edge. He moved toward the massive chakra presences he felt suddenly rise in the distance, even though he was outside of Konoha. A strong presence. He could see Sasuke a good distance behind him. He landed on a tree branch and watched as the Junins suddenly gained speed. It would be hard to keep up with him at that speed, but he was fast. I was aware of it. There is a happening. In any case, who the hell were those guys? Kurenai left the battle behind and crossed the water. Her attempt to use genjutsu to catch Itachi had failed, and as compensation for her efforts, she had received a kick to the face that she had narrowly avoided blocking. She toppled over, landing in a crouch on the water's surface. Asuma was swerving his blade to avoid Kisami's blows. The multiple blades of the sword had cut his shoulder. It wasn't meant to cut enemies. It was meant to shred them. Calling out to her in alarm, he'd nearly taken another hit. "Kurenai." Kisame laughed. "You don't have time to be concerned with others." Kurenai was completely unaware that Itachi was right behind her. As expected from Kurenai, but just in front of his nose, a green blur passed, and he jumped back and looked over. He maintained his composure throughout. Dynamic entry. After his kick, Maeda Guy landed on the water's surface. "We don't have time for this." Itachi appeared mildly irritated, nothing more. After receiving a cut on his cheek, Kisame snarled in response to realizing that wind chakra was encircling his opponent's weapon, a pair of iron knuckles with short knife blades. He sealed it with his hands. Alert! Dan Tsukio no Jutsu. Huge amounts of river water leapt in the shape of a shark at Asuma, who leapt into the air and crossed his arms. "Damn." Sharkman gave a smile. "Hey. Are you not nimble?" Crossing his weapons in front of him was Sarutobi. "You just arrived?" With a kunai aimed at Itachi's back, Guy was standing behind him. "Indeed. While he notifies the Anbu of this, Kakashi sent me. It seems like a sensible choice. Uchiha Itachi, a long time has passed." The figure appeared unfazed by his location. "Maeda Guy, a long time has passed, don't you think? Though I don't want to kill any of you." Kurenai gave a growl. "You will." She looked up at him. Guy's expression was serious. "What is it you seek here?" The shark nin gave the newcomer a smile. Asuma was in a defensive stance, leaning back. "Maeda Guy? As a master of taijutsu, I've heard of you. Outstanding record as well." Itachi raised his voice. "Kisame, get over your foolishness. It wasn't our intention to get hurt here. Keep the mission in mind." Guy prodded his rear. "What mission?" Speaking from behind him was Itachi. "We're looking for something." Guy landed on his shoulder after ducking. What? Shadow copy? Crouching, he rolled onto his feet. What the? Kurenai snarled, getting ready to swing a weapon. Guy landed on top of her and she nearly lost consciousness. As the clone exploded, they both submerged beneath the water's surface. In an instant, they were both back at the surface, staring at Itachi. The former Leaf Nin was ahead of them, and quite a ways behind. Guy gave a nod. An ingenious trick, though I'm getting used to fighting clones. It's a widely used method these days. Kurenai. Guy. Asuma had seen the explosion and leapt over next to them. He's strong. Guy's face was half smile, half cocked. He is, indeed. At the age of 13, he was made an Anbu captain. But we haven't yet seen his true potential. Itachi gave him a scowl. Why is the Uchiha clan thought to be the most powerful? I'll demonstrate for you. Guy's voice was high. Avoid meeting his eyes. I've prepared myself to combat the Sharingan. You have to learn how to fight while keeping an eye on his feet because I don't have time to teach you. Itachi's gaze softened a bit. I see. Astute, but ineffective. It just makes things a little trickier. He looked away. Why is this kid in this place? It is not appropriate to bring something so feeble and useless into a fight like this. If Leaf is resorting to such things, it has truly become weak. A voice raised itself from next to the Leaf Nin. Thanks for the tip. Kurenai let out a gasp. Hold on. Hello Sasuke. Why are you in this place? Guy gasped as he peered over his shoulder. What? When did that occur? The boy was positioned directly beside the three-leaf Nin. His angry, wide eyes spoke volumes. He was glaring at the man in front of them, his Sharingan going full force. Itachi swiveled to face the boy. What? He scowled a bit harder. I can't do this right now. You ought to go. The boy growled. I'll kill you. He rushed forward. Itachi stepped aside to give him space. Kisame. A sword blade slashed over his head and he ducked and rolled. When his younger brother passed by once more, he scowled and turned his head. Grasping Sasuke by the back of his shirt, Itachi raised him. I didn't come here to cause you any trouble. As usual, you're just getting in the way. Sasuke gave a nod. I'll always be in your way. He made Itachi release him by whirling the blade behind his head. He whirled around as he touched down and attempted to mop the ground. 3 kunai passed over Itachi, who ducked and slid back on the water's surface. What? There was another Sasuke behind him. I see. He turned and kicked slidingly, planting his foot in the boy's stomach who was throwing kunai. It took off again and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. What? A familiar but unsettling sound filled the air and he spun around. Chidori? He could already see Sasuke almost in his face. The boy's fist made contact, and he dove and rolled on his side away from the attack, sending a massive explosion of water sailing into the air. The elder Uchiha turned his head and growled. His cheek was cut open and bleeding. Sasuke crouched and stood on the surface of the water, growling. I'm going to kill you. Guy leapt towards Itachi, causing the man to block with his arm and slide 10 feet further across the water's surface. Good work, Sasuke. The boy looked over his shoulder at Guy and ran between them, spreading his arms. Leave this place. I own him. Maeda appeared taken aback. What? He moved up front. You can't. Another Chidori was ready from Sasuke already. I'm going to kill you. What a bastard. Itachi's eyes narrowed. With lightning chakra in his hand, Sasuke was charging forward without even looking at him. This is problematic. He attempted to move away, but his legs remained motionless, so he turned to look at them. What? Beneath the surface, another brother of his was holding his legs. Damn. With wide eyes, the 4 nin observed the scene as another burst of water filled the air, obscuring the outcome. There was still a mist after it landed. Nonetheless, Sasuke was hunched over Itachi's knee, as was evident to all. He had cut Itachi's sleeve with his attack, spending most of it behind the man in the water. Sasuke was lifted off his feet by the elder Uchiha, who grabbed him by the throat. Well, you're still nothing but pathetic. Is your hatred still too small? Your eyes are motionless. When the boy's eyes snapped open, 2 marks began to spin. With anger in his eyes, he smiled at his elder brother. Yes. Correct. Itachi made a painful grunt. A sharp stabbing hit his shoulder, and the Sasuke he was holding disappeared. With a growl, he watched as the boy fell on his brother's back, piercing his shoulder just a little bit with the kunai. The older Uchiha had moved enough that the shallow wound missed his spine. Clever, but your killing power is still weak. He gave the boy a stomach kick. Half submerged, Sasuke was winded. He rolled over, clutching the bloody kunai firmly in his fist and coughing up some blood. I'll kill you. Itachi gave his younger brother a fatal kick to the face. The boy was sent skidding across the surface, and if Kakashi hadn't grabbed him as he skipped across it like a stone, he would have sank like a rock. He placed the boy on top of him. I'm not done yet. Sasuke could only mutter. Kakashi said, not turning to face him. I fear that you are. No retaliation is coming your way today. Sasuke, another time. Watching as Guy spun in several attacks, Itachi ducked under his kick. Uchiha withdrew, remaining just out of the attack's path. How troublesome. Guy halted and gave him a scowl. What are you trying to achieve? You clearly don't care about Sasuke. Uchiha, the elder, nodded. Yes, that is accurate. He has no value. We seek the inheritance of the 4th. Kakashi gave him a glare. Though silent, Sasuke was alert. The boy raised his voice. The 4th? He was unable to lift himself off his instructor's shoulder due to his weakness. Hatsu scowled behind his mask. I see. Is that Naruto? He felt Sasuke stiffen, and he narrowed his eyes slightly as he glanced at the boy hovering over his shoulder. He hadn't intended for the boy to hear what he'd said, having said it under his breath. He glanced once more at the 2 men. It's not just the 2 of you, I know that. The organization goes by the name Akatsuki. Itachi scowled. Kisame. Kill the others, and bring Kakashi with us. Guy lunged forward, snatching his sword off the shark man's back and kicking him. Kisame brought it up just in time to block the kick, but as Maeda landed in front of him in a prepared position, he slid back a few feet. Asuma trailed closely behind, supported by Kurenai. Kakashi remained at the back, holding Sasuke. Before speaking, the bearded Junin took a puff from his cigarette, which he had managed to keep lit somehow. What's the plan? Guy scowled at the feet of his rival. They remain here until the Anbu show up. They have already departed. Itachi gave him a scowl. Just Kakashi was the only nin who wasn't even glancing at him. I see. Kisame, set it aside. Our purpose here is not to wage war. Time to head out. Kisame gave Guy a brief glare. A shame, I got excited. Too bad. The 2 men in black blurred and disappeared in front of the leaf nin. Guy turned to face the other nin with him, lowering his fists. So, Uchiha Itachi has returned. Kakashi gave a nod. That appears to be the case. Come on, it would be useless to pursue them. He placed the boy on his shoulder and stepped away from the riverbank. After a brief moment of disorientation, Sasuke scowled at the nin. I'm going. He pivoted and sprinted in Konoha's direction. Kakashi let out a groan. It figures. Asuma observed with bewilderment. Where is he going? The boy's teacher appeared a little agitated. Probably after Naruto. Guy gave a nod. Oh, so he's concerned about his friend? But why? Arms crossed, Asuma said. I concur. What connection does this have to Naruto? For a moment, the masked nin just stood there silently. Glancing in the direction that Sasuke had fled, he raised his voice. The inheritance of the 4th. They could be pursuing the 9 tails, in my opinion. Kurenai's eyes narrowed. What would they want with that thing? Kakashi shrugged a little. I'm not certain. I guess I should pursue him. I should probably try telling him to stay here after this, but I doubt he would listen. Guy nodded. I see. It's him that you were concerned would follow you. With a brief nod, the gray-haired nin moved away and headed towards Konoha. I guess I should go look for Naruto on my own. Along the road, I'm sure to run into him again. Masara scowled as she glanced at the boy gasping in front of the door. What? The head of state? Sasuke was panting and had trouble breathing. Where is the location of Naruto? Did he mention his destination? Kurama approached the trio of tails from behind and inclined his head. Why? Am I doing something incorrectly? The boy with dark hair glanced up at the redhead. There's a chaser for him. I have to locate him. Sasuke had two foxes in front of him in an instant after the two girls exchanged glances. As Kurama left through the door, he spoke up. What is after him in your context? Whom? Why not? Masara remained seated in the entrance. Then, I'll remain here and take care of the prince. I wish you luck. Sasuke pursued the quartet of tails. My brother. As they made their way to the gates, the animal peered over his shoulder. Itachi? It has indeed been a while. With the boss, what would he want? The boy jogged beside the animal, staring down at it. The fourth's inheritance, somehow. It doesn't concern me. Itachi is my target. As they passed the village gates, the animal gave a nod and turned to face forward. I see. I suppose I can understand that. He lowered his ears. With the boss's inheritance, what does Uchiha want? What does that mean? Really, I don't remember leaving him with anything. Perhaps some cash, but it doesn't seem like Itachi would be interested in that. He gave a slight growl. Sasuke let out a grunt. Is it really that important? They were unable to travel very far. His nose twitched as he cast a quick glance at the animal as it jogged away from Konoha along the road. What does Naruto have to do with the fourth's inheritance anyway? The fox gave him a quick glance. What? Is it true that you were unaware? The boy appeared irritated. No what? The creature squinted and squinted at the earth. The boss is the son of the fourth Hokage. The boss is the rightful inheritor of any inheritance left by the fourth Hokage. In any case, what does Itachi want from the boss? They were running at the moment. Sasuke was struggling and exhausted, but he was also pushing himself quite a bit. The boy grunted once more. I'm not sure. It doesn't concern me. Itachi will be killed by me. Kurama squinted at the light. He stopped and began to walk. Yeah. Well, you better hope we get the chance to rest first. You'll just be killed in that condition. Sasuke turned to glare at the creature as he staggered to a stop. What are you doing? We've got to hurry. The animal carried on with its trot. You won't find him without my nose, kid. Shut up and slow down and catch your breath or you'll just fall over before we get there. What good are you then? Sasuke gestured with his arm. I've got to catch up before. The fox sat down in the road and said, I'm not leading you off to get yourself killed. We've got time to walk for a bit so you can catch your breath. Neither one of us knows what's going on here, it seems. The boy clenched his fists in frustration. Kurama laughed. He began to trot and followed Sasuke, saying, I haven't lived for 400 years by being stupid. What do we know? The boy scowled and looked down at the creature. It's something to do with some kind of inheritance. They're looking for Naruto to get it. I don't know what it is. The fox gave a nod. Well, I know what you want with Itachi. It's none of my business, but I suggest you forget about it for now. You're not strong enough to beat him, and you won't be for a few years at least. I'm not going to try and stop you, but if you really want revenge, you'll need to be patient. If you want to get yourself killed now instead of getting what you want, it's no skin off my nose. I'm only giving you advice because the boss likes you. For a moment, Sasuke gave the creature a glare. I'll be fine. Kurama gave a nod. Assist yourself. I'm merely trying to assist you because of the boss you know. I'm meant to assist in keeping a watch on him. It appears we're mutually beneficial to each other for the time being. He increased his speed slightly but maintained a fast walk. Sasuke nodded. I know. He was able to follow his guide effortlessly, and his breathing had become more quiet. What's this about Naruto's dad being the fourth? The creature gave a nod. You didn't know? That's weird. Chunin, who had raven hair, scowled. Huh? I've never heard that from anyone before. What's weird about it? Are you sure? Kurama gave a nod. Of course. That's how the queen came to be sealed in him. The fourth wasn't the kind of man to steal someone else's child for something like that, you know. He was walking along looking happy. I remember that day. I remember the day Naruto's birth was announced. There was a big party and the whole of Konoha celebrated. Hadn't been a party like that since Sarutobi's son was born. Again, Sasuke displayed impatience. We should hurry. Aren't you worried about Naruto? The fox laughed. Word will reach him before we do. Masara would know to send a message ahead of us. Chunin had a shocked expression. Huh? The creature ambled forward. Hey. He's the Fox King. I like him, but he's more than a friend to me, you know. Any kitsune is obligated to help out here. There's already a message on the way to him. Uchiha nodded and growled a little. How do you know so much about Konoha? The animal's ears perked up. These ears aren't just for show, you know. Besides, we like a good party. A bunch of us slip in whenever there's a festival or something. We're around more than you think. I've been all over Fire Country, but I've kept my den near Konoha for 400 years. I was born in the woods surrounding it. We all make the trip to Shadow Realm when we turn 200 and get our second tail, but most of us live in this realm. There aren't many places in the world with no foxes, you know. With a nod, the boy took off running. Come on then. I want to catch up before Itachi reaches him. I'm not doing this just to warn Naruto. Kurama sighed slightly and quickened his steps. The Chunin had sufficiently healed to move a little more quickly. Kisame and Itachi were perched on a small bluff with a view of the hotel town below. Shark Nin raised his voice. I don't know, you can fight where and when you like, but the time seems wrong. Well, this way they can't augment their numbers. The Kunoichi won't pose a problem, and the other girl I didn't know. She didn't look like a nin. Kisame laughed. A girlfriend, perhaps? Why would they bring her along, though? She looks a bit old for the kid. Maybe she belongs to Jiraiya? I'm impressed if a man that age can have someone like that following him around. I suppose being one of Konoha's legendary three has perks. Itachi scowled while nodding. I never would have spotted him if not for Jiraiya. He's not like the boy I remember. His partner laughed. Grown a bit, has he? Well, he's got one of the legendary three guarding him. It's good that you spotted him, but that guy might be a match for the first of the Leaf, or one of the Mist Seven. Itachi nodded. Yes, it's said that every strong man has a weakness though. Naruto, Sakura, Jiraiya, and Kira were strolling along a dirt road. There was a hotel town not far ahead of them. Although it wasn't very big, it was bigger than the majority of the small villages scattered across the countryside. He stopped, seemed to blink, and scowled at Kira, who was practically dangling from his arm. The man scowled as he peered at the hooded nin over his shoulder. He had positioned himself next to the man, the kitsune by his side. Sakura scowled at the couple. It appeared as though they were dating, and the girl with the violet hair was happy. Naruto raised his voice. He continued walking, and Jiraiya paused for a second before quickening his pace to keep up, saying, Hey, pervert, we're being followed. What? Followed? Sakura displayed a shocked expression. What do you mean? The ninja in a hood nodded. I just got a message. One of my clones ran into a fox messenger. Some guy named Itachi is after me. Sasuke and Kurama are on the way here. Some Itachi guy and some guy with a big sword. They're dressed in black kimono with red clouds on them, and they seem to be after me. Something to do with my old man's inheritance. I'm not sure what the hell that means, but they're after me it seems. Jiraiya gave a nod. I see. Sakura had a perplexed expression. After you? The man with white hair nodded. I suspected. I wasn't expecting them to show up here. The kunoichi frowned with irritability as she nodded. So what do we do? Naruto gave a shrug. I dunno. An ambush seems like our best option. What do you think, pervert Sennin? The man scowled and appeared to be thinking. With a heavy sigh, he said, the name is Jiraiya. Don't you know how great I am? They're probably after the Nine Tails. Sakura glanced at the boy and the kitsune after nodding. Well, they'll be disappointed then. Kira's expression was frowning. What would they want with the queen? Jiraiya shrugged. I'm not sure. She's very powerful, they're probably trying to control that power. The kitsune's voice was a mixture of amusement and anger. They'd be destroyed. No one controls her power. Naruto nodded slightly. Maybe. She's not here though. For now, why isn't as important as what we're going to do about it? Sasuke is coming here as well it seems. Sakura had a happy expression. Sasuke? Great. Jiraiya closed his eyes and peered up at the heavens. We'll get a room. Our best option is to avoid them. Itachi is a S-ranked criminal. If that boy Sasuke is on his way here, he's got more reason than just warning us. The two Leaf Nin spoke simultaneously. What do you mean? Kira raised her voice. Uchiha Itachi, he's the one who murdered his own clan. Sasuke was the only survivor. Sakura covered her mouth, a look of horror taking over her face. Naruto nodded, remaining composed. So, that's the man he wants to kill. He's mentioned that before, but never gave us any details. Jiraiya was staring at something, his eyes closed, his arms crossed. This is a problem. Itachi isn't someone to take lightly. Killing the entire Uchiha clan was no small matter. They were very strong. He's quite powerful. Sakura's expression was hard and angry. Maybe we shouldn't stay here then? Naruto gave a nod. Maybe not, but if we do something unusual, we might tip them off. I don't think we should hide, we should get ready for them. An S-ranked criminal isn't something we should pass up. We should try and capture him. He's a wanted man, and we're Leaf Nin. Jiraiya gave him a quick look. We've got a mission already. Naruto raised his gaze. Yes, but Tsunade isn't going to vanish into thin air. We've got an opportunity to set up an ambush. We shouldn't waste it. Besides, this guy is after me. I can't ignore that, I'll have to deal with it sooner or later anyway if that's true. Sakura tugged at her travel pack's straps. She clenched her hands and said, he's right. We can't just ignore this. Besides, Sasuke is on his way here, right? Should we just leave him to fight this guy alone if he's really this strong? Kira let out a little sigh. I suppose we won't get any training done tonight. Naruto gave a nod. With a slight sigh, he said, probably not. As they moved through the hotel town's streets and observed the people going about their business, they thought, what a pain. I don't think just running off and hiding is an option at this point. Jiraiya gestured for the group to follow as she turned to face one of the hotels. He approached the counter and took out a couple of keys, saying, come on, we'll stay here today. Sakura, Kira, and Naruto stood behind him, surveying the passers-by in the lobby. Jiraiya turned to face them, and just then, a stunning woman with long, dark hair entered the pair's line of sight and winked at the man with the white hair. Both men were staring at her, and Sakura gave Naruto a sharp elbow to the stomach. Kira saw it too and reached over to grab his arm, leaning close to his ear. I could look like that later. If you'd like. Sakura locked onto her head. She looked over to where Jiraiya was handing Naruto the keys and exclaimed, this isn't the time for that. Pervert. The hooded nin took the keys and glared at him as he followed her. Here, you go up to the rooms and refine your chakra as training or something. He realized the man had given him a strange but serious look as he left, and he arched an eyebrow. Great. Sakura was furious and continued to have Kira, who appeared nervous, in a headlock. What? Where is he going? We're about to get. She was interrupted by Naruto. Pipe down, they're already here. Come on. She was set free by the kunoichi. Huh? How do you know that? What's going on here? After tugging at her sleeve, the boy guided her to the stairs that led to the rooms. Just come on. We need to get ready. I don't think we've got much time. She tugged at him. Where is he going then? Naruto kept yanking her away. He scowled as he peered over his shoulder. I don't think the pervert is being all that perverted right now. Just come on. I don't want to talk about it standing here. Well, maybe a little. Still. We don't have time to deal with it if he is. Kira appeared happy. Wow. This is pretty exciting, boss. Sakura scowled over her shoulder at Naruto, pulling her along, and growled, pervert. Sasuke was crouching on the roof of a building in the hotel town, gazing out over the town below. Although the place was busy, the streets weren't overly crowded. Kurama was lying next to him, his tongue dangling. Well, I'm pretty sure they're here somewhere. Beside him was another fox. Yeah, boss came into town. Not sure where he went, but no one said they saw him leave. The boy with raven hair nodded. Naruto is pretty sneaky, but I doubt Sakura or Jiraiya could slip out like he could. Kurama gave a nod. He hopped down to street level and said, shouldn't be too much trouble to track him. Sasuke looked at the motionless fox on the roof. Thanks. The creature gave a nod. He hopped back the other way, away from the town, saying, no problem. Kurama had his nose in the dust as the two stood there in the dust. The animal raised his ears and perked up. This way. With a growl, Sasuke nodded. Hurry. Memories of that day flashed through his mind, the bodies, his brother watching over his parents' corpses, and the Sharingan imprisoning him in that awful jutsu. The Tsukiyomi method of Mangekyo Sharingan. He had revealed to him that he had murdered his whole family in order to test his own dominance. Using Tsukiyomi's power, he had made him watch it. He had instructed him to develop a hatred for him, to endure the ugly, to endure, and to harbor hatred for him. Yes, he did. Naruto sighed and turned to face the door. The knock on the door made him shuffle over. It was persistent and just difficult enough to be bothersome. Yeah. I'm coming. He glanced up after opening the door. His mask covered his gaping mouth, and his eyes were a little too wide. He could see a pair of Sharingan eyes observing him. Yeah? You want something? He asked, his eyes widening slightly as they continued to stare him down. His face looked a little stunned as he retreated from the door. Who are you? He moved deeper into the room as the door opened fully. His arms were loose and trembling slightly, and his knees were bent. What do you want? The man was still glaring at Naruto, and behind Itachi stood another nin. Alone? How fortunate. Kisame surveyed the space. Glancing at Naruto, he asked, could this child really be the Nine-Tails? With a smug smile. With a growl, Naruto pondered in his mind. So, they are after her. What's with these guys? What do they want with her anyway? Itachi walked into the space. Naruto, we would like you to come with us. The boy gave them a narrowed look. He still had a nervous look on his face. What? Who are you? Why should I come with you? Itachi moved in their direction. Come out of the room. Kisame laughed and reached for the sword on his back. They both accompanied him into the room and said, Itachi, it's time we got started. We should cut off his leg. We don't need him running about. Naruto gave them a glare after he stopped trembling. Reaching for him, Itachi said, hey. You dopes. Ribbons appeared to flow off the boy's body and wrap around his arm, causing the man to freeze. Suddenly, all of the hotel's lights went out. Itachi gave a growl. With a furious scowl and ribbons from his clothing coiled up around his shoulder, Naruto exclaimed, what? Kisame let out a gasp. A trap. A recognizable voice called out in the hallway. Itachi. The man with the Sharingan eyes stepped back, casting a sidelong glance over his shoulder. The boy in front of him had ribbons hanging off of him and encircling the room's furnishings. Sasuke? This could be problematic. Kisame. The shark nin gave a nod. He retreated from the room and removed his sword from his shoulder, saying, right. Itachi looked as a hissing noise began. Clouds of gas with a green tint were forming in the room's corners. His eyes widened as he turned back to face Naruto. I see. A clever ambush, but What? He asked, raising his free arm as a half-fox-like creature that only slightly resembled Naruto bit down on it and snarled while closing its eyes. With a sword in his hand, Sasuke was glaring at the tall black-clad ninja standing in the hallway. You're not the one I'm interested in. Kisame gave a snort. Well, another pair of Sharingan? Hey. Never thought I'd see that. You're in the way, kid. The man froze when he heard a voice behind the shark nin. He turned to face the floor, but then said, Are you sure? He's the one who is in the way. The mat was giving way beneath his feet as though it were composed of quicksand. A woman with red hair was standing behind him, asking, Wah? What is this? You? Who are you? With something on his arm and a kunai in his hand, Itachi stormed out of the room. He wore bits of ribbon wound around his arms and ankles. He exhaled deeply as he closed the door behind him, realizing that the room he'd been in was fuming gas filled. His head jerked sideways as something struck him across the face, screaming, Kisame. This is a trap. Damn it. With a smile on her face, Sakura had emerged from one of the rooms and lowered a slingshot before going out of view in a blur of movement. The object clattered between them, and the shark nin began to hiss as gas poured out of the canister, giving it a growl. He raised his weapon as Sasuke leapt at him, kicking him, and the boy bounced off of it, saying, I noticed. It took him a moment to use a wave of his sword to knock the gas canister away. The gas was blown away in the ensuing breeze created by the chakra as the canister clanked down the hallway and fell around a corner. Itachi glared at the hooded nin that was now standing in the hallway behind him, asking, Genjutsu of this level? Impressive. He was yelled at by Sasuke. Naruto. He's mine. Stay out of this. It's my fight. The nin with the hood looked up at him. Fuck you. These dicks have targeted me. I know what you want with him. I understand and all, but I'm bringing him in, alive. He needs to be interrogated. There's something going on here. Itachi gave him a glare. He moved to ask, I see. So, you think you can capture us? But then tensed up. With a wire in her hand that was now encircling Sasuke's brother in a web fastened to the walls, Sakura descended onto the floor behind him. Maybe not just him, but all of us together? Hell, yeah. As he drove his blade into the earth, Kisame let out a cry. With a gasp, the woman behind him leapt away and landed next to Sasuke. The shark nin faltered briefly before regaining his balance and saying, Damn. He swung his weapon back, saying, Itachi, it seems there's more of them here than expected. Sakura rolled and collided with the wall, avoiding being torn to pieces, but her cables broke, releasing Itachi from the web. Shit. A burst of violet light illuminated the dimly lit hallway. With his hand full of energy, Sasuke charged right past Kisame, who was momentarily distracted. With the blow, he gouged a hole in the wall and yelled, Die. You bastard. In an instant, the wall that Itachi was standing against vanished. Looking directly into his brother's eyes, Sasuke gasped. Itachi had stepped aside without any issues. As Kisame attempted to pass in front of Naruto, he turned into a blur. The hooded nin bounced off the upper corner of the wall and past him, but the shark nin pulled up his weapon and blocked the sword strike. What? He exclaimed, spinning and slashing as the boy rolled and landed beneath the blow. This is odd. Itachi seized Sasuke's forearm and used his grip to snap the bone, causing Sasuke to scream. You're in the way. He was forced to hop back and release his brother as Sakura jumped and slashed at his grip. Sasuke. With his other arm, the boy with the raven hair shoved her away. Sasuke screamed, Stay out of this. Before hitting the wall and stumbling backward. Frowning at the two brothers, Kira caught her before she lost her balance and pulled her back a little. Whose side is he on? Furious with Kisame, Naruto snarled and moved away from his sword's line of sight. He ducked with his own weapon between them. The shark. Nin snorted. You're pretty weak. My Samahata eats chakra. Seems you've got none to speak of. The young man gave a nod. What makes you think that's a weakness? When Kisame turned and saw another Naruto stabbing at his back, he gasped. With his weapon, he deflected the blow and kicked the new boy in the chest. The clone disappeared in a cloud of smoke, then spun around and locked blades with the boy once more as he charged forward and attempted to take advantage. "What is this?" the boy asked. He swung up, slamming a hole in the ceiling and tossing the hooded nin back, saying, "You." "What?" After landing on his back, Naruto nearly dropped his sword. "Damn." Kisame's eyes narrowed. He hacked at the fallen boy. "Well, should I chop off an arm or leg?" Naruto raised his blade in defense. The sword was halted when a toad moved in between them and used an arm guard to block. Jiraiya had a woman draped over his shoulder as he stood behind Naruto. "Well, you don't seem to know much about me. I'm better at getting girls than they are at getting me. Even though it doesn't look like it, it's my specialty. This epitome of manliness. I've only got to flash that sexiness and women fall at my feet." The boy sighed slightly as he looked up at him. "It's about time you showed up, pervert Sennin." The man with white hair scowled at the young boy. "Quit calling me that in front of others." Kurama was in his rear. "Huh. As the epitome of femininity, I can say for certain, you're not half as manly as the boss." Naruto gave her a sour look. "What? Epitome of femininity? Since when? You're a guy." The redhead used her toes to play with the ground. "Well. Yes. Still. You're much manlier than the pervy Sennin." Jiraiya gave a growl. "That's not true." Kira raised her voice. She said, glancing at the kunoichi with pink hair, "Yes it is." "Right?" Sakura scowled. She flushed and said, "Leave me out of this. Sasuke is manlier than either of them." Naruto sighed slightly, but Kisame and Itachi were staring at him with somewhat disgusted looks. He jerked his thumb at the opposing pair, saying, "We don't have time to argue about it. Shouldn't we be worried about catching these two idiots?" With a scowl, Sasuke looked at his brother. He lunged at Itachi once more, saying, "I don't care about that. I'm going to kill him." But was struck in the chest and had a hook placed across his jaw. His older brother pinned him against the wall by grabbing his throat. He closed his eyes to get the Mangekyo Sharingan ready and said, "Enough of this." Sakura pulled a few kunai from her leg and hurled them at Itachi, saying, "Sasuke." No. 3 kunai missed his younger brother's head and became impaled in the wall next to it, so the older Uchiha jumped back and growled, letting his brother fall onto his rear against the wall. Sasuke was stunned, slumped over, and growling in exasperation, saying, "You. This is none of your concern." Sakura took a step back and clenched her fists. Kira, who remained by her side, corrected her, saying, "The hell it isn't." The younger boy closed his eyes, venting his frustrations through his thoughts. What have I been doing? How can it still be this much of a difference? Kisame smiled. Well, we weren't thinking that would stall you long. It seems you've undone that genjutsu on the woman. After all, you are Jiraiya of the Legendary 3. Naruto let out a gasp. He's discovered your secret identity and seen through your disguise as a mild-mannered pervert. Jiraiya appeared irritated. He gently pressed the woman up against the wall and said, "I'm not a superhero idiot. I don't have a secret identity." He stood up and scowled at the two, saying, "Still, that wasn't a very manly tactic. It seems you really are after Naruto." Itachi's eyes narrowed. Yes. So, you're the source of Kakashi's information. Abducting Naruto is our orders from the higher echelons of the organization Akatsuki. The ninja in the hood balled his fists. Why? Kisame's blade was released as the impeding toad disappeared. Jiraiya raised her voice. You won't get Naruto. Shark Nin raised his voice. Why not? The nin with white hair glared at the two of them. Because, right here, right now, you will die by my hand. Kurama gave a nod. Good idea. Don't do it. Sasuke exclaimed as he got up. Sakura and Kira were standing behind him, appearing perplexed. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. Maybe one of them. We should try to capture at least one of them for questioning. Rising to his feet, Sasuke gave his brother a fierce look. I don't care. This one is mine. Itachi looked back with a frown. He kicked his brother hard in the chest and sent him flying back into Sakura and Kira, saying, I've got no interest in you right now. When the two finally caught up to him, he got to his feet and shoved them away. Kira looked at Sakura, clearly annoyed. How do you figure this ungrateful jerk is more manly than the boss anyway? Sakura studied the kitsune for a moment before narrowing her eyes. He is. The girl with violet hair clucked her tongue and averted her gaze. No way. When the brother was charged by the dark-haired Chunin, Itachi gave him a severe beating. He repeatedly pinned his brother to the wall and beat him. Naruto snarled. He stepped forward, but Jiraiya put his hand in front of him, saying, What the hell is that idiot doing? Charging in like a mad bull like that? That idiot forgot everything he learned. Assholes. Let him go. Kisame stood between the scene and Jiraiya, Naruto, and Kurama, watching. Sakura attempted to charge forward, but Kira stopped her. Sasuke. She exclaimed as she engaged the kitsune girl in a brief pushing duel, pausing when something caught her attention. As his brother pinned him, Itachi leaned in. To prepare the eye jutsu once more, he closed his eyes and said, You are weak. Still not enough, hatefulness. The ceiling tile above his head shifted open, but he didn't notice it. With a swift movement, Naruto kicked Itachi in the face. The blonde nin landed between the man and his brother, causing him to jerk back. Hatefulness isn't strength. It's weakness. You scum. A small amount of blood was seeping from Sasuke's chin. Stay out of this. You. The ninja in a hood didn't turn around. I told you already, they've targeted me. I won't kill him, but I'm not just going to stand there while you charge in like an idiot and get killed. He was hiding among them. I want them alive. We need to know more about this, Akatsuki, crap. Leave your personal feelings out of this, Uchiha. With a growl, Sasuke attempted to push off the wall but was unsuccessful. Itachi gasped and hopped back to be next to Kisame after ducking under a kick from beside him. It's time to go. Sakura exclaimed, Kakashi-sensei. With relief and satisfaction. The gray-haired Junin moved in front of Naruto and Sasuke, pulling his foot out of the wall's opening and grasping a kunai. Itachi. Kisame scowled. He scowled at Jiraiya and the other Naruto in the hallway, saying, Already? It was just getting fun. He's harder to catch than expected. The nin with white hair placed his hands on the ground. Nippo. Gamaguchi Shibari. A flesh-like material began to cover the walls. Hey. There's no escape now. You're trapped in my stomach. You two criminals enjoy being food for Iwagawa. Naruto raised his feet and cast a downward glance. Gross. Kisame threw a ball of smoke in Kakashi's direction. As the blue-gray-skinned nin slashed at Sakura and Kira, the gray-haired nin pulled them behind him and out of the way. Kakashi watched as the kids ran by, protecting them along the way. Damn. Jiraiya smiled. A moment after they turned the corner, his eyes widened. No one sneaks away without my awareness here. The man moved with them, and he hurried up beside Kakashi. What? He had Naruto behind him. What is it? At the other end of the hall, all that was visible was a hole surrounded by a black flame. The two men watched from behind the hooded nin. They made off, Kakashi remarked. Naruto looked irritated and said, Son of a bitch. He stepped past the two. Hey. What is with this black fire? Cool. I could use a jutsu like that. No light at all. Jiraiya scowled while tugging at his shirt's back. After a moment of labor, the fire appeared to flow into the scroll as he sealed the flames and tied them off into the sealed scroll. Stay back. He said, pulling out a scroll and unrolling it. Head hung, Naruto did. I guess going after them won't do any good. Nuts. Kakashi surveyed his surroundings. Well, it looks like you might not have needed my help at all. Naruto raised his gaze. Huh. We almost had him caught. Then that idiot Sasuke showed up and seemed to forget everything he learned. We doused the lights, and the idiot ran in with his hand glowing purple and screaming. What the hell was he thinking? Jiraiya scoffed at that. He wasn't. The boy with raven hair emerged and swung at Naruto, his expression filled with anger. Kakashi clenched his fist and said, I told you to stay the hell. Naruto was right. What were you thinking charging in like that? You're no match for Itachi, and you should have realized that. I can help you get stronger, but you're not going to do anything to hurt him if you get yourself killed being stupid. The boy with raven hair bit his lip and hung his head. The hooded nin let out a little sigh and shook his head. This is exactly what I meant about you not being trustworthy. We might have been able to capture him if you hadn't charged in like that. Then he could have stood trial for his crimes against your family. With a look of anger in his eyes, Sasuke looked up at him. That's not good enough for me. Naruto moved up to his face, glaring him in the eyes and poking his thumb into his own chest. Yeah, well, I'm not going to just stand there and die so you can have your stupid revenge either. They were after me. So quit bitching about me being in the way when I was the stupid target. The two scowled at one another, their foreheads nearly in contact. Kakashi separated them. He turned to face Sasuke and said, that's enough you two. If you ever want to beat Itachi, you'd better start learning to use your head. You're not going to rush in and overpower someone like him. Ever. Do you understand? Losing your head like that will only get you beaten and killed. Jiraiya nodded, crossing his arms. A moment later, he was staggering back after a green blur struck his face. He's correct. Dynamic entry. Placing his fist in his palm, Kakashi appeared to recall. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I told him to come and back me up if I wasn't back in 5 minutes. Guy landed, scanning his surroundings. What? Oh. Oh dear. He said, giving Jiraiya an embarrassed smile while scratching the back of his head. The nin with white hair was holding his nose and appeared irritated. Sorry about that. I was using my forehead protector as a mirror, and I didn't recognize you. Jiraiya gave a nod. He crossed his arms and appeared to forget about it. So you didn't do it on purpose then? All right. Don't worry about it. Sakura and the two fox girls were observing. Kira said, boys. Simultaneously with her. Kurama laughed heartily. Hey. That was pretty funny. Come on. Kira turned to face the outdoors. Hey. It's still early. Maybe me and the boss can get some training in tonight. The other Kitoon gave a nod. Yeah. Good luck with that. Me and Masara tried, but all he did was whine about it. Sakura scowled at the two of them. What training? What are you talking about? Kira crossed her arms and turned up her nose. It's nothing. Just something I'm supposed to work with him on. The Kunoichi gave an eye roll. She moved up beside Sasuke and said, whatever. I think you did great. Really? He turned away, giving her a scowl. Whatever. He got away. I guess I'll be heading back to Konoha now then? Kakashi gave him a look and gave a nod. Yes. We'll get something done with the two of us tomorrow. There's no point in hanging around. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. I'm gonna work your butt off when I get back, you dork. You won't be charging in like an idiot that way again while I'm around. With a slight growl, Sasuke turned away. Whatever. Guy gave a nod. He smiled and gave the group a thumbs up, saying, well, we shall return to Konoha then. Good luck with your mission. With his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, Kakashi waved slightly, and Naruto waved back. The Chunin had his head turned away and his arms crossed. Kakashi began guiding Sasuke away as he cast a sidelong glance. Yeah. Good luck, I guess. Naruto appeared happy and smiled. Yeah. I'm gonna work his butt into the ground when we get back. Guy gave a nod. I see. Perhaps I was wrong about you. You may turn out to be a true leader yet. I can see that you care for your team if you're willing to train hard with them and make them stronger. It's a sign of the true and pure spirit of youth. Remember, work hard, and make sure that your own training is just as difficult, and you will surely become one of the strongest of the Leaf's nin. Kurama waved and smiled, heading out of sight with them. See you when you get back, boss. You make sure and train hard with Kira, you'll need it. Trust me. As she slipped her arm beneath his, the kitsune with violet hair caught Naruto's attention. She waved her fellow kitsune off, grinning, saying, "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Sakura complained, "Sadist." She recalled a few of Lee's remarks regarding his training. Naruto isn't like that. The man left, and the hooded nin took a quick look at her. Yeah. Well, don't think you're getting out of it either. If I'm going to make him do something, it's not really fair if I don't make you do it too. The girl paled a little and tensed up. You are K. Kira stroked Naruto's shoulders and grinned. You're tense, boss. I'll give you a massage. He let out a tiny sigh. Not just now. I'm hungry, and... he said, turning to face the disarray that had taken over the hall. I'm guessing it's probably best if we find another hotel. Jiraiya nodded, trying to look very wise as he crossed his arms. Yes. I think perhaps it's best if we leave before the hotel manager shows up and sees the mess. They departed through the opening in the wall that Itachi and Kisame had dug, Sakura grimacing at all of them without raising an argument. I'd rather have gone with Sasuke. Oh well. Maybe I'll learn something useful. I'd better after this mess. The four of them then went off to look for another room. As the group proceeded down a road, Naruto walked with a somewhat confused and lethargic expression on his face. Sakura was beside Jiraiya on one side and on the other. Kira trailed along behind the three at a leisurely pace. Sakura looked up the road and sighed slightly. So, what kind of person is this Tsunade? She's one of the legendary three. Sennin, who had white hair, peered over his shoulder. I was wondering when she'd start talking again. It's been quiet for an hour now. With a nod, Naruto raised his gaze to him. Yeah. It's because of that Ino girl. She can't shut up for a minute. Sakura wasn't like this before. Sakura scowled at the two of them. What? The nin with the hood shrugged. It's true. Ever since the tournament, you've been running your mouth non-stop. I understand and all, that friend of yours sure can talk though. Jiraiya nodded gravely. Yes, it makes sense that you would want to fix it so badly now. What happened anyway? He asked, turning to find Naruto no longer by his side. There she was, Sakura, glaring at him. With a start, he moved away from her. Glancing back, he saw Kira and Naruto behind them. Kira was squatting next to her boss, who had a footprint on the back of his head and was face down in the road. With a push to his feet, Naruto shook his head. Sakura was glaring daggers at the man, saying, "What was that now? You asked something?" Sennin gave a headshake. Well, I was wondering what happened. I never got the details on what the problem was in the first place. Only that Ino girl was injured somehow, and that it's done something to you. Moving away from Sakura, Naruto stepped up on his opposite side and strolled beside them. That Yamanaka girl used a jutsu called Shinten Shin on a cage bunshin that Haruno made. When she broke the jutsu, it screwed up her body pretty bad, and Ino got copied into her mind. Sakura is sort of two people right now. With a chin rub, Jiraiya nodded. I see. Yamanaka, yes. See. Cup, slender, long blonde hair. I recall peeping on her before, when I was younger. Very pretty women in that family. Quite perky. Head cocked, Naruto did. I dunno. She was pretty skinny and tall, as I remember. The man with white hair stroked his head and smiled. Yes. Those are the kind of girls who grow up the hottest. She'll be quite a babe when she's older. The teenager nodded and appeared to consider it. Ah. I see. When he looked up this time, Jiraiya was gone. The man was face down in the dirt, with a broken boulder strewn all over his head. You dirty old man. How dare you look at my mother that way? Sakura glared at their guide's back, her arms outstretched and her mouth agape. Kira advanced beside Naruto. What's with her? She doesn't want her mother to be sexy or get laid. What a horrible daughter. Naruto's brow furrowed. How should I know? I'm not going to ask her. Sakura poked fun at the kitsune with her finger. You're just as bad as he is. You pervert. My dad is plenty. Kira played with her toes in the dirt and nodded, smiling. She blushed. Being perverted is fun though. I love sex, it feels really good. Sakura's hand dropped to her side as her jaw dropped. WH. What? With a grumpy expression, Jiraiya combed small stones out of his hair. She's right, you know. Don't be so prudish. Sakura was pushed back onto her shoulders by Naruto as he moved in front of her. Cut it out. I don't like it any more than you do, but we're on a mission right now, you know. The kunoichi with pink hair snarled, then eased up. What kind of person is this Tsunade anyway? Jiraiya appeared to be thinking as he closed his eyes. Well, her bust is 106 centimeters. Kira smiled and gave him a wide-eyed look. Wow. That's impressive. The man gave her a smile. Indeed. She's pretty famous. Sakura became irrationally angry once more, and Naruto sighed heavily. He gave her a second glance. Cool off. There's nothing we can do that will stop them from being perverts. Just deal with it. She scowled at him and gave a nod. For now. The ninja with a hood examined Jiraiya. Well, you said she's some sort of super babe. If she's one of these legendary three, wouldn't she be about your age? The nin with white hair nodded. Yes. Sakura's vision was of an extremely wrinkly woman with enormous sagging breasts. Oh. Naruto appeared to have a similar perspective. Whoa. That would make her really old. After a brief moment of irritation, Jiraiya crossed his arms. Well, she'll probably look like she's in her 20s. Sakura nodded and sighed. She was excited to meet her and wondered, what kind of person is she anyway? She's one of the legendary three. She must be pretty cool. The man shrugged. Well, she's kind of annoying. For Sakura, that was a plus. Though he scowled, Naruto remained silent. Sakura appeared to be agreed with Kira. Yeah. She used to pound him all the time. You could hear the cries of pain for miles. Jiraiya cleared his throat and flushed a little. Ahem, yes. Well, she's a compulsive gambler, and well known in a lot of countries. Naruto appeared happy to learn that. If she's famous, we shouldn't have much trouble finding her. The man smiled as he leaned in. Yeah. That's right. She's famous all right, she's known as. The trio of teenagers inclined slightly inward. The legendary sucker. Kira's expression turned irate. She's what? Jiraiya, Sakura, and Naruto all turned to stare at her at once. The kitsune began to stomp away. Well, we'd better hurry up and find her then. Oh. Just you wait until I meet her. That witch. How dare she? I'll show her. Just you wait. The legendary sucker indeed. Huh. Who is that little brat kidding? She's 100 years too young to beat me. The senin looked perplexed and scratched his head. What's with her? Naruto looked at him and shrugged. Hell if I know. Sakura gave up trying. Let's just go already. Jiraiya gave a shrug. Well, it probably won't be that easy to find her. She's a compulsive gambler and not the type to age gracefully. She'll be using a special jutsu to change her appearance. I've heard she changes her appearance from anything from a 10-year-old to a 30-year-old to get away from her gambling debts. She loves to gamble, but she sucks at it, in both skill and luck. Sakura winced. What? This person is. Naruto also appeared irritated. Are you sure this is the only person who might be able to help with this? Jiraiya gave a nod. Pretty much. From a short distance ahead of them, Kira scowled at them all. Well, all we need is something she's touched recently, or someplace she's been, and I'll be able to track her. No problem. There's no way she's getting away from my nose. Jiraiya scowled. Don't be so sure. She's a Sannin level nin. Kira snorted roughly. Don't be stupid. I'm a kitsune. No human genjutsu can fool me. That's just silly. I'll find her, no matter what. Naruto's eyebrows were furrowed. What the heck got into her? Sakura gave him a shoulder push. Why don't you ask her? Glancing down at her, Jiraiya tugged at the pack's straps. You just don't get it. If he's anything like me, he probably doesn't want to know that bad. Naruto nodded. No way I'm trying to talk to any girl who's acting like that. If I remember after she calms down I'll ask her. Though she didn't feel like asking herself either, the kunoichi appeared irritated. She remained silent as a result. So, we don't know how long this will take. Jiraiya gave a nod. Don't worry. There's no real hurry. Sarutobi-sensei told me the girl is stable and will remain well enough until we can return. So, we've got all the time we need to find her. Naruto scowled slightly. Yeah. Well, we can't take forever either. Sakura concurred. She glanced at the ground and said, he's right. I want to fix this as fast as I can. It's not been too bad, but I can tell it affects me. Jiraiya gave a nod. Well, we'll be spending some time training as well. I've got to teach you a bit of what you'll need to be an effective Junin. You've got a lot of work to do. We'll let your friend participate as well. It won't hurt any, though I'm not sure she'll be able to do it herself. It will still help advance her skills even trying. She'll get some of it, I'm sure. Sakura appeared irritated. Whatever. Naruto looked at her merrily. Don't worry. I can make more clones, so I'll probably get it faster. So I'll help you out. I'll make sure we both get it, even if I've got to work your butt into the ground. With him, the kunoichi appeared irate. Is that supposed to make me feel better? They ended up in the middle of a festival, looking out over a large town. The town was busy and the streets below were packed with people. Sakura became happier. Wow. Naruto nodded. Impressive. As they approached the town, Jiraiya began to stroll along the road. Come on. We'll start looking for information here. There's no point in training before we get that started. Kira approached them and took a position next to Naruto. Hey. A party. The local kitsune will be around town. I can ask them about Tsunade. Jiraiya appeared happy. Well, that could be useful. We'll stay here until the festival is over. You three can do whatever you like. We'll take a break before training starts. We'll start training here as well. Naruto appeared happy. Yeah. This should be cool. I've never seen anything like this before. Sakura appeared taken aback. Really? Mom and Dad brought me to a festival like this once. It's been a long time though. I was very young the last time I saw anything like this. After glancing at her, Naruto remained silent. Kira grabbed his arm. Come on, boss. We'll have a look around. The boy nodded, brightening up a bit more. Yeah. Why not? It'll be fun. Sakura and I can make a few clones to have a look about, and maybe find something out about Tsunade while we're enjoying the festival. The girl with pink hair grinned. Yeah. That's a good idea. Kira gave a nod. Yeah. I'll go off later on, and ask the local foxes about her. I can meet them in the woods after we get a room and get settled in later. There's no hurry if we're staying. Sakura gave Naruto a wide-eyed glance. He intervened by reaching out to stop her just as she was about to pay for a bite to eat after taking out her wallet. He had a very big, fat wallet in the shape of a frog and said, "Hey. This is on me this time." It was overflowing. I'll pay for us for tonight. As he gave her one of the boxes of rice and sweetmeats she had been purchasing, the kunoichi blushed. He handed the money to the vendor and gave one to Kira as well. Thank you. Kira appeared happy. Yeah. Thanks, boss. Sakura gave a nod. You've been saving? You shouldn't spend it all on us. I've got enough I can. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. I've got a nest egg at home. This is just my first paycheck. I brought it with me. I'm getting Junin level pay now. I've not gotten any mission bonuses yet, but I get paid pretty well. I can afford to blow a bit on the festival for the three of us. Don't worry about it. Sakura appeared a little irritated with him, saying, Kakashi-sensei was pretty cheap. The boy shrugged. I own my place. I don't shop very often. I do a lot of hunting because it's better for Kitsuma to eat what he would in the wild. The only thing I really buy back home is a bowl of ramen every now and then. I don't have many bills right now. It's not like I'm buying diapers or baby clothes or anything. I've got it pretty easy considering. Kira gave a nod. Yeah. We help him out feeding the prince sometimes too. Sakura gave a nod. Okay. Thanks. Naruto navigated through the throng alongside the two. They spent some money on festival food, explored the booths, and played a few games. They were all having a great time. Up until a group of 4 older boys stopped them. They remained in the way of the trio, concentrating on Kira. They appeared to be around the same age as the kitsune and were all dressed in hakama. The one in the lead approached her, a wooden sword slung over his shoulder. Well, hello. I've never seen you around here before. Sakura gave them a scowl. What are you doing? After taking off his mask and hood to enjoy the festival, Naruto scowled at the boys. Hey, relax. The kitsune with violet hair scowled at them as well. Let us pass. I'm not interested. The lead lad laughed. Hey. I'm just asking. My name is Moshino. You're pretty, why don't you come with us? We'll show you around. Naruto gave him a scowl. We'll get by without a guide, thanks. The spiky brown hair of the older boy was pulled back with a bandana. All of his lackeys turned to look at the young blonde. They laughed and smirked at him in a mean way. Moshino examined him closely and asked, Are you babysitting or something? Sakura scowled. You'd better move. Naruto gave her a quick look. Calm down, would you? Nothing wrong with asking for a date. I'm afraid she's not available. We've got other business, and we're not going to be in town long. Sorry. Kira gave a nod. She tried to move around him, looking serious as she said, He's right. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. His 3 companions obstructed her path. The group leader gave her a smile. Hey. Look, we can show you a real good time. Why don't you ditch these kids and come with us? Sakura glanced at the fair-haired boy. Naruto. The boy moved to the front of Moshino, between her. She's not going anywhere with you alone. Get lost, would you? The older boy gave him a scowl. Who do you think you are? You think just cause some animal scratched you on the face you look tough? You think just because you bought one of those stupid forehead protectors at one of the booths? Kira gave the boy a narrowed look. That's not fake. If you bother him, he'll hurt you. I'm not watching him, I work for him. He's one of Konoha's nin, and so is this girl. Moshino scowled. He tapped Naruto's shoulder with the wooden sword, saying, What? This little punk. Thumbing at the sword hilt hanging over his shoulder, Naruto jerked. I'm not impressed. Mine is real. I suggest you guys take off. Before we get upset. As more of the blonde boy emerged from the crowd surrounding them, the group of boys cast glances at each other. There were about 7 of them, and not one of them appeared happy. They gave the group an unpleasant look, but they didn't appear to be about to attack. The boys began to retreat. The boy on the older boy's left said, Moshino. I don't think he's kidding. Sakura gave a nod. He's not. Get lost, would you? We're having a nice time, no point in ruining it now. Just leave. The boys all walked away from them, disappearing into the crowd. The extra Naruto returned to the throng of people. Kira gave him a smile. Thanks. The 4 other girls with the young nin did not notice him as he slipped back into the shadows, his blowguns ready, and put them away. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. No big deal. Sakura folded her arms. We could have just kicked their butts. Those jerks. Uzumaki gave her a scowl. No point in making a mess when words will do just as well. Soon afterward, the group found itself in front of a puppet show. They were watching and taking in the spectacle from behind a throng. Glancing over his shoulder, Naruto scowled. Trouble on the way. Sakura and Kira both gave him a startled look and glanced at him. Huh? Moshino called out over the crowd, there. That's him. The jerk who threatened me and my friends. From behind them. Sakura asked, looking irritated, what? That jerk again? Naruto turned to see an older man frowning at him while dressed in ostentatious robes. Beside him stood Moshino, flanked by several burly men brandishing swords. The elderly man was a stocky man with a mustache. He scowled at the three and advanced, his men encircling him. So, you are those bothersome outsiders who have threatened my son. With a cool gaze, Naruto asked the man, who are you? Is this guy your son? The man gave a nod. Yes. I am Yukugo Mokura, the mayor of this town. The blonde placed his hand on Sakura's shoulder and gave him a nod. I am Uzumaki Naruto. I'm a Junin from Konoha. Your son was bothering my friend. I'm afraid we're all here on business. We decided to stop and enjoy the festival for the evening since we're here, but she doesn't have time to go on a date with him. The man asked the three with narrowed eyes, what are you doing here? The boy took a step forward. He disregarded the guards who put their hands on their swords. We're looking for a woman named Tsunade. The Hokage wants to speak with her. With a frown, the man looked at his son. I see. This woman is wanted? Naruto gave a headshake. She's not a criminal. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details. She's got no warrant for her arrest. We do need to speak with her, and we're only here to find her, or a lead to her whereabouts. The man gave a nod. My son claims you threatened him. He made a date request to my friend. I get it, but she's not allowed to play around just yet. He shouldn't start pointing that stick of his at strangers. It will cause him pain. With the support of his two female allies, Naruto maintained his composure. Not all ninjas would have been so considerate as to simply tell him to stop. He blocked our path and refused to let us go so he could harass her. He's just fortunate that at the moment we weren't taking any urgent action. Sakura appeared nervous, and Kira was practically hiding behind his back. Yukugo gave a nod. I see. I'm sorry if this caused you any trouble. I hope you have luck, but I don't know anything about Tsunade. He pivoted and seized his son's ear. His bodyguards trailed behind him. You naive. You're fortunate to still be alive. The older boy became somewhat wide-eyed and appeared surprised. What? Dad? You can't mean business. There's not really a punk there. The boy's ear was bent by the elderly man. That nin boy is real. He could have killed you before you even realized you were dead because he is a Junin level. Konoha's uniform is familiar to me because I've previously used his services. It's a good thing he didn't kill you. Foolish. You're grounded, so disregard the celebration. Sorry. Daddy. Moshino gave a pitiful little whimper of agony. With a sly smile on his face, Naruto crossed his arms. Sakura was grinning along with Kira. They saw the boy being hauled off and scolded by his dad. Kira let out a little sigh. Well, that was pointless. Sakura glanced at the two, chuckling a little. We need to track down that pervert. It's growing late. Naruto gave a shrug. I guess. He is somewhere I know. Sitting between two attractive women, Jiraiya was sipping sake and had leftover food in front of him. Wahahahahaha. You two are such a lovely couple of ladies. A vein pulsed from Sakura's forehead. What the? Naruto gave a shrug. All right. What action did you anticipate him taking? Kira gave a nod. He's right, you know. The kunoichi with pink hair snarled. He's supposed to be looking for information, isn't he? Uzumaki gave a nod. Yes, that's right. Places like bars are excellent for this kind of thing. The two women seated beside him appeared rather hollow and were giggling. Sakura balled her hand. I doubt either of those two knows anything at all. It appeared as though they might be using the same brain cell. Kira laughed. It seems like fun. Leader. I'll feed you in that manner. He appeared irritated. My hands work fine. She gave him a smile. I've practiced for years. My own are superior. I swear. Sakura was astounded. What? What topic are you discussing? Kira's eyes shifted to the ceiling. Well, not much. Actually. Jiraiya appeared to be aware of them. Oh, Naruto. What was the outcome of the festival? Did you find it enjoyable? The young man gave a nod. It was enjoyable. The mayor and I crossed paths, but he has no knowledge of Tsunade. Sakura grinned snarkily. His son was a jerk. The nin with white hair nodded. There's nothing here either. I chose to unwind for a little. The blonde gave a nod. I noticed. The three young teens were being observed by the two women, while Kira was clinging to him. Sakura became enraged. You're a pervert. That was just what you did to get rid of us. Kira and Naruto gave her a quick look. So? The kunoichi with pink hair scowled at them. What? Uzumaki offered a sneer. Would you rather have hung around to watch this? She sighed after appearing to consider it for a while. I suppose you're right. Nevertheless. Approaching Kira, a man with black hair pulled back took hold of her waist. They went inside and a balding man with a smile on his face walked beside him. Hey. Could you get us a table please? As he moved the girl with the violet hair away from the three of them, he called to one of the waitresses. Naruto had an irritated expression. Not again. Sakura let out a growl. What? Kira attempted to disengage from his arm. I don't work here. The man gave her a smile. So? The graying man said something. Stop talking, bitch. It's fortunate that Mr. Akoki took the time to show you his respect. Thus, perhaps you'll enjoy it if you behave and keep your mouth shut. Naruto moved ahead of them. He squinted at the two and stopped him by sticking his hand in the dark. Haired man's stomach. Release her. She is here with us. Akoki scowled. Did you just touch me? Kira withdrew from him and positioned herself behind Naruto. What is it with this place, boss? The young blonde had his arm slapped away by the bald man, who scowled and grabbed his shirt. You're a punk. Dare you to even touch Mr. Akoki? It's a blessing that you live. He used to be a chunin from the village of Stone. He is a fearsome yami nin who is legendary in the genre. An extraordinarily talented nin. Naruto scoffed at that. The man was a fool, and he was dressed in his Junin uniform. If that was true, he'd know better than to let his friend put his hands on a Junin of the leaf. The boy didn't even see the bald man go down on his knees in front of him after a punch went straight through his stomach. WH. What? The man with dark hair snarled. You're a punk. I'll. He was charging now. Naruto ducked as he put his hand over his shoulder to grasp his sword, and Jiraiya was in front of him. That's no way to treat a lady. The man looked at him angrily and staggered in surprise as he raised his palm. What? Who believe you to be? I'll demonstrate what pain is to you. Jiraiya smiled as the man lunged towards him. Behind Akoki, the bald man stumbled to his feet, glaring at the boy with a growl. Sakura, pay careful attention, Naruto. I'll demonstrate the jutsu I'll be teaching the two of you. The man's hand began to swirl with power, and the two teenagers watched. When Jiraiya thrust the palm full of energy into Akoki's chest, the man shot back out the doors, taking his bald companion with him. They landed outside, spinning and flying away into a water balloon booth, crushing it in their wake. Naruto raised an eyebrow. That was pretty cool. Sakura's eyes were a little wide. Wow. While holding the man's wallet, Jiraiya managed to catch one of the water balloons that had flown out from the unstable stand. He took the money out of the wallet and walked out the doors toward the terrified vendor. This is a victory fee I'll be taking. The vendor cowered away and he looked at him. Sorry about your stand. On top of his bald friend lay a Koki. What did you do to me? Jiraiya laughed. I just prevented your death. You know, that boy is one of Konoha's Junin. He wasn't lying. Idiot, he nearly chopped you in half. You're not strong enough. He turned to give the money to the vendor. This is where. For all the water balloons and the broken cart. The man appeared anxious. I don't really mind. Despite their surprise, Jiraiya thrust the money into his hand and turned to face the two nin. Leave, Sakura and Naruto. It's training time. From behind them, Kira was beaming. Congrats. Mr. Pervert, that was really cool. The nin with white hair sighed deeply. My name is Jiraiya. Sakura's gaze lingered on the water balloon she held. So, we've got to spin the water inside the balloon until it breaks? Naruto gave his head a scratch. They were outside the village, and he had put on his mask and hood once more. That doesn't sound too hard. Jiraiya gave a nod. That's right. Beside him was a sizable sack filled with water. Filled balloons. This is just the beginning. It is the simplest to understand. The kunoichi with pink hair nodded. Well, I guess we should make clones and get started then? Naruto gave a nod. Yes. I think I can handle this by doing about 10. Sakura gave a nod. I'll just do one, as usual. She appeared slightly, but not overly, irritated with him. The nin with white hair grinned. Indeed. I'm afraid you'll have to buy more balloons on your own if you run out. You two have my word on this. I'm heading back into the city to investigate further. Kira gave the two a smile. She was perched on a rock not far away. Yes. I'll head over to ask the foxes in the area if they have any updates on this. Naruto gave them a nod. We'll stay here and train until dark. Sakura let out a little sigh. Well, I suppose it's time for us to start. We won't be able to accomplish what he did for a while. She was staring at her balloon, intent on it. I already have a feeling that this won't be that simple. But I'm capable of doing it. Naruto nodded happily. We'll get it. While Jiraiya and Kira started to stray in different directions, the two nin got to work. Jiraiya and Naruto were sitting on a log, staring up at the night sky. They both looked up at the sky, and he appeared worn out and tired but not sleepy. A little more than 2 weeks prior, the group had departed from Konoha. The two young nin had already begun stage 2 of the technique when they had left the town with the festival. Nearby, Sakura and Kira lay beneath sheets beside a fading campfire. They had made a nighttime camp after traveling for roughly 2 days to reach the next town. Throughout their journey, Kira had shared a room with Sakura, and Naruto had been sharing a room with Jiraiya. Since they had begun, the training had left the two young nin exhausted every night. They trained for 4 or 5 hours each, rested and recovered for a while, and then continued until they fell asleep. Though it slightly slowed their pace, they had no trouble training while traveling. The Sennin peered up at the stars and grinned. You know, I've not traveled with this many people in many years. It brings back memories. The boy grinned at the two girls and nodded. It's been different than traveling with Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke. That made the white-haired nin laugh. He held out his arms, saying, I imagine it would be. You know, I almost didn't teach you that technique this time. If it wasn't for Akatsuki, I wouldn't have. Naruto gave him a quick look. Huh? Why not? The man with white hair laughed and put his hands behind his head. Well, to be honest, I had intended to only show you this technique. It was one of your father's. He created it. I wasn't planning on teaching that girl how to do it. He grabbed Naruto by the shoulder. Then you insisted that I teach her. I almost went with something else. The boy hung his head a little and nodded. I see. With his hands on his knees, Jiraiya displayed a hint of surprise. You're not going to ask why I did anyway? The blonde smiled a little. I would have showed her anyway. Right? The man gave a headshake. I thought so. Would you have? Naruto grinned at the dirt with a half-cocked grin while nodding. He looked at his palm and the small mark in the center, saying, yeah. I'm learning a lot. I think this trip has done both of us a lot of good. The man's eyebrows lifted. But? It glows, and it's kind of loud. It doesn't really suit my style. I'm not so sure I'll ever need to use it myself, but I will if I think I need it. He looked at the instructor. I'm glad you're teaching it to me. I'm sure I'll find it useful somehow or another. I'd rather my whole team was strong. Not just me. Sasuke has Chidori, and now Sakurai and will have this. I've learned a lot about chakra manipulation. Jiraiya appeared to find the response funny. Well. You never know. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I will use it someday? It's a tool, like any other technique. If I think it will be useful, I won't hesitate to use it. The man with white hair glanced up at the sky once more. You know. You look like your father, but you remind me more of your mother. The boy turned to look at him. Huh? The Sennin turned away from him. He always had a stupid grin on his face. He was pretty loud at your age. Always going on about how he was going to be Hokage someday. He was always cheerful. With a nod, Naruto prodded the earth with a stick he had picked up. I don't really know anything about him other than what we learned about him at the academy. He's my father, and I don't know any more about him than any other nin. Jiraiya gave a nod. Well, your mother was a beautiful woman. She smiled a lot as well, she talked a lot more than you, a very bright person, and a bit of a tomboy. She had a sense of humor of course, but it was more subdued. I used to think she was the only person who could get him to take anything seriously. He was a good man, and a fine student. Gazing up at the stars, the young nin was thinking. I'm not so sure I care much for him. He stuck that thing inside me. I guess, I'm not really angry though. I'm not sure what I'd say if I saw him again. Jiraiya scowled. You're not as unlucky as you think. He did what he had to do. The young man gave a nod. I know, for Konohagakure. I can't really hate him for it, but I'm not so sure I wouldn't punch him in the face for it if I saw him again either. Sennin, who had white hair, nodded and appeared serious. I guess I can understand that. Naruto snorted and seemed to smile a little. Wonder what he'd make of his grandson. Jiraiya took a head tilt. Well, I'm not sure. I think he'd be more worried about your wife. I wonder what your mother would think. The boy leaned back and glanced up at the sky once more. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm not so sure of what I make of all that myself. Kitsuma is more like a pet than a baby. It's weird. The man scowled. That will change soon enough, you know. You shouldn't think that way. Naruto gave a nod. I know. I can't help it though. He's my son, but I've got to keep a litter box and feed and water him like a dog or something. I suppose I've got it easy. Still. The Sennin gave him a shoulder slap. Well, you'll get used to it. He'll be able to take human form soon, and he'll start talking. There was a slight increase in the young nin's ease. Yeah. I used to dream about being Hokage myself. I was a pretty loud and obnoxious kid when I was younger. He cracked a grin. Hope he's not too much trouble. I was quite a handful. That made Jiraiya chuckle. What happened? The youthful Uzumaki clenched his hand and raised it to examine it. I learned that just being the best ninja I can be is hard enough. Worrying about things like Hokage is just a distraction. Dreams, goals, and ambitions are for normal people. My duty is enough for me. Sennin laughed heartily. I used to think I might like being Hokage when I was younger myself. I realized I'd hate it though. It's not in me. With a smile, Naruto nodded. Makes it hard to be a pervert, huh? Ruffled his hair, Jiraiya. Boy does it ever. There's a whole world of women, Konoha just isn't enough for me. The boy got up, shook his head, and seemed not to mind at all. Well, I guess I should get some sleep then. The man raised his arms. I'm not far off myself. After 3 days, Sakura had her back to her. She held her hand over her face, staring at the mark on it while her hand trembled. My arm hurts. Beside her, looking equally exhausted and drained, was Naruto. He shook his head and cradled his own hand, saying, Yup. Feels a little numb. The young woman scowled. I think I'm gonna blow up my hand. Her partner gave a nod. I doubt it. Still, doesn't feel any better. With a groan, Haruno eased back up, letting her arm fall to the floor. I'm just gonna lie here for a while. Uzumaki snorted in amusement. Yeah. I don't think I can stand up again for a minute. My chakra is gone. Sakura looked annoyed and said, this is just the second step. Naruto gave her a quick look. We'll live. The girl nodded and gave him a scowl. Yeah. There were a few popped rubber balls all over the floor near them. We're running out of balls. From the tree above them, a few leaves dropped. One of them landed on the forehead of the pink-haired Kunoichi as they floated to the ground. Naruto noticed it as he turned to face her, grinning. You know. This is just like what Iruka-sensei told us. She glanced over at him, blinking. Naruto picked up the leaf to show her, and she said, huh? He placed it against his forehead protector over the symbol and said, remember, about the leaf's symbol? The young lady gave a nod. She appeared to brighten a little as she said, yeah. I remember. The first Hokage used to put one on his forehead and concentrate his chakra into it to meditate. The hooded nin seemed to ponder for a moment before closing his eyes. He once more opened them, licked his finger, and massaged the indentation on his hand. Sakura furrowed his brow and peered at his palm. What are you doing? On their uniforms, he had left the same mark. Cute. What good does it do you? Naruto gave a shrug. He held one of the training balls and lowered his head, concentrating. I used to try that myself, you know. Back when I was at the academy. I could never get Bunshin no Jutsu to work. I tried everything I could think of. I remember reading about it after Iruka-sensei told us. It didn't help much then. Sakura appeared perplexed. Huh? Then why? As the energy inside his ball formed, Naruto raised his hands and pointed them toward the ground. As it tore the ball to pieces, the energy created a lot of dust and several gouges in the ground. With a gasp for air, he got up. Second stage. Complete. The Kunoichi with pink hair scowled as she examined it. She sat up and picked up a leaf to examine it, saying, hey. You did it. Like Iruka-sensei said? He gave her a quick glance. Come on. You can do this. Just give it a try again. She nodded, looking a little irritated. She placed the leaf in her palm and closed her eyes, saying, I can barely move. Still, I guess I could try again. She was back on her back in an instant. After I get a bit more rest. With a nod, Naruto got up. He walked a few paces and repeated the maneuver. Then he moved to the tree trunk and took a seat next to it. He leaned further against the trunk and swooned, saying, ouch. Sakura rose from her spot on the ground and turned to face him. His hand was slightly burned where his palm was facing up. He burned his hand? The burns had a definite pattern, concentrating in the middle near the mark on his palm. Around his palm's edge, the marks were larger, but as they got closer to the mark in the middle, they became thinner. The Kunoichi sat up, scowling as she took another look at her own mark. She closed her eyes and balled up her hand, saying, it looks like. She said, I can do this. As she opened her hand again and licked her finger, matching his mark on her palm. She glared at one of the intact balls she had picked up from the floor, saying, if it worked for him. She sensed the energy inside the ball growing. She thought of a leaf, and she saw energy swirling around it, saying, don't lose it. Keep. Focus. Sakura saw it swirling toward it instead of around it as it focused. When her eyes opened, a burst of strength shot through her hand, I can do this. The ball tore apart from the inside as the energy whirled around her hand erratically, jolting her palm and arm. Sakura smiled as she collapsed back onto her back. "Hey, I did it!" she exclaimed as the world went black. A few minutes later, Jiraiya arrived on the scene. He watched them both pass out and grinned. His smile narrowed slightly when he saw Naruto's hand. He cocked his head and cast a quick glance at the kunoichi with pink hair, saying, "Well, he focused his chakra so much he burned his own." Her hand was slightly scalded but not burned. It was pink. Little shards of one of the balls were scattered around her, and the pattern of marks on her hand matched his. He was expecting Naruto to advance to the third stage before making their way back to Konoha. "I see. So, both of them? I never expected that." Before they returned, he doubted Sakura would ever advance past the second stage. He assumed that she would become stuck there and give up after they returned. He turned to face Naruto and said, "This girl too? That's something else. I guess you were right then." He had Naruto's full attention. He appeared exhausted. "Yeah. I told ya. Now we can both start stage 3. Jiraiya gave a nod. He turned away and appeared to be thinking, "Right. We'll find Tsunade now. I'll explain the third stage on the way." "Hey. What is it you're doing with those clones you've been making?" Naruto appeared a little taken aback. "Huh?" The Sennin cast a sidelong glance at him. "I ran across them the other day. I expected you to give up on making them for this. You both learned stage 1 much faster because of them. This stage requires so much chakra, I expected you to stop using them. You've been making them anyway, but they aren't doing this training." He returned to the boy's face. "I'm curious, what are you doing with them?" They were both just sitting there, looked like meditation of some sort. Naruto got up and nearly lost his balance. Leaning against the tree was him. He smiled at the man and said, "That's what it was. What I'm teaching her there doesn't use any chakra at all." Jiraiya took a head tilt. His eyes widened slightly as he stared at the hooded nin. "What sort of? I see. So, you're showing her that too, are you?" Naruto nodded. He remained silent. The man gave him a scowl. "You shouldn't give all your secrets away, you know. You might regret it one day." The boy was able to maintain enough balance to stand up straight without assistance. "I got plenty of secrets." As they left, the group was gazing out over the town that was constructed inside what appeared to be a crater. Naruto had an irritated expression. "You know, it's been bugging me since we got here. What kind of idiot would build something into the low ground like this? All I'd need is maybe a dozen archers to take this place over. It's completely undefendable." Sakura appeared taken aback. "Huh? Now that you mention it, yeah. Still, we're in the middle of fire country. It's pretty safe here anyway. I guess they can get away with it." Jiraiya pointed off into the distance, clearly very into something that day. "Come on. Let's go." Kira stood next to Naruto. "We'll find her for sure, boss. I won't let her escape." The ninja with a hood hung his head. "I guess. What about this third stage?" Sakura also appeared to be intrigued. "Yeah. What's it about?" Jiraiya gave them a smile. He blew up 2 balloons and threw them to the young ninja, saying, "Well, we can do that training even while walking. Here." Both of them caught them and gave them a perplexed look. "Huh?" Jiraiya started out by outlining the third step. He explained the procedure to them, saying that while the third stage was the same as the second, it had to be completed inside the balloon so as not to shatter it. 2 shadow clones were sitting on the ground across from one another not too far away. Sakura caught Naruto's eye. "Well, we've got to start stage 2 of our training now." Sakura appeared taken aback. "Huh? Stage 2? The clone in male appeared happy. "Yup. This is the hardest part." With a serious expression, the girl asked, "What are we going to do then?" "Follow the others." Sakura appeared to consider it before asking, "Without being seen?" Naruto merely gave a headshake. "Nope. We're not hiding, we don't have to keep up with them, we're just going to walk. We don't actually need to follow them, but we're going to walk, all day." The girl looked irritated. "Huh? Walk? Are you serious?" The nin with a hood laughed. Yup. I figure we'll follow after them, just to have a direction to go. We don't need to keep up or anything. The girl appeared perplexed. What good will that do us? I mean, we've just been sitting here meditating since we started stage 2 of that perverted Senin's training. Naruto got to his feet and wiped his knees. Yup. Leaning against a nearby tree, he crossed his arms. You go ahead and stand up. I'll wait here for you. The girl appeared angry. She attempted to push off the ground by pushing with her hand on her knee and asking, "What are you talking about?" Her gaze widened slightly as she examined her legs. Huh? She asked without moving. Hey. Her teacher gave her a funny look. Don't take too long now. I'd rather make a little progress towards catching up to them today. Though, I really don't expect to. Sakura gave way a little, fell flat on her back, and was unable to even sit up. What the? Are you kidding? Uzumaki appeared to take pleasure in the scene. Nope. No cheating now. I'll notice if you do, and you've got to start over. The girl knitted her brow. She'd managed to roll onto her stomach, and her attempts to raise herself with her arms were pitiful and so far ineffective. You could have said something about this. It wouldn't be as funny if I had. Come on now, all you've got to do is stand up. Then we can try walking. I'm really looking forward to it. Naruto was looking very happy. Asshole. The girl yelled, growing agitated. He appeared even more amused at the idea. Don't be like that. Think how much fun we'll have when Sasuke does this. If you're good, I'll let you watch. Sakura nearly gave a fit. That's when she felt it. No way. Her wide eyes said as she turned to face Naruto. The boy nodded as he knelt in front of her. Yup. I'm like that all the time. After 7 hours. Standing at the edge of the woods they had been in, Naruto was observing. He was leaning against the last tree on the path, having a good time. Well, we've almost made it. Sakura's performance was so astounding that it reminded me of a baby learning to walk. She was gesturing with her arms to maintain her equilibrium. She appeared to be stomping with wide steps as her legs seemed to be lifting off the ground. She staggered and leaned, then hauled herself back up. The girl was out of breath and drenched in perspiration. She collapsed face first into the dirt once more, just as it appeared that she had regained her equilibrium and stood straight. Ouch. Her teacher gave a little laugh. Well, now you've got to stand up again. Try not to lean forward or back until you get the hang of it. Sakura gave him a scowl. Can't you help me up? He gave a headshake. Nope. You've got to learn to do this on your own. Her brow furrowed in annoyance. Jerk. She struggled on the ground again, taking almost 2 minutes just to push herself to her hands and knees. Only to have her arms give out and end up face first in the dirt with her rear in the air. Tanzaku City. Kira smirked as she balled up her fist. We've arrived. She seemed to calm down to her usual self again and looked back at her companions. They'd been traveling for several days to reach it. Jiraiya nodded. This is the place then? Naruto and Sakura both looked a little worn, and each was holding a balloon. They looked on over the city and glanced at each other. Sakura spoke up. We're sure she's here? The Senin shrugged. I don't know. Kira didn't seem sure herself. Well, according to what I've heard from the other foxes, this is the last place she was seen. No one had heard anything about her leaving yet either. The fox girls seemed to get annoyed. I'm pretty sure she's here. I'll find her, don't worry. Naruto nodded. Right. Well, we should start looking then. The streets of the city were bustling and busy. The group had spent about 2 hours walking through it. Both the young children were a bit in awe of the size of the place. It was larger than Konoha, as the name Tanzaku City implied. Wow. Big place. Naruto seemed impressed. How are we supposed to find someone in all of this? Sakura gave a sigh and hung her head. Don't doubt my nose. Kira smiled at her and touched her nose as she winked at her. Jiraiya nodded. Right. He seemed to freeze. In front of them, 2 women were walking along. I told you. How are we supposed to pay for our room now? The younger of the pair was holding a pig in her arms. She looked irate and worried. She had short-cut black hair. Now we've got nothing, and we can't even buy a meal. Again. Why do you do this? The woman with her had long blonde hair, a massive pair of breasts, and appeared to be only a year or two older than her companion. Don't worry so much, Shizune. We'll be fine. She had a long coat on her shoulders with the symbol for the word, gamble, on her back, and a diamond-shaped mark in the center of her forehead. Tsunade. Jiraiya's face lit up and a grin formed on his face. The two women seemed to freeze up and panic for a moment. They both calmed visibly as they noticed the white-haired Sennin in front of them. The blonde spoke up. Jiraiya? Shizune flushed. Great. How embarrassing. Tsunade leaned in. Shut up. He's the perfect sucker. Solution to our problem. She seemed cheerful and turned towards the man. Jiraiya. What are you doing here? She seemed to realize he had two children with Konoha forehead protectors flanking him. Who are these two children? There was a girl with violet hair behind them, but she didn't look to be with them at first glance. Sakura got annoyed. Children? So, this is the legendary sucker. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya and jerked his thumb at her. No way. Kira frowned at him as she grabbed his arm. Tsunade seemed to freeze in place. What? She looked at the boy and what now seemed to be his girlfriend with a little anger. Jiraiya looked a bit nervous. Ignore them. How have you been? It's been ages. The woman's attention shifted and she seemed to forget about the young boy's comment. I'm fine. Shizune turned her head away and grumbled under her breath. Don't you mean broke? Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at their companions at the same time and leaned in to say the same thing. Look. Shut the hell up about that. The Sennin looked at his old friend and chuckled. Hey. I'll buy you dinner. The woman frowned at him. Why are you here anyway? He scratched at his head. Konoha has a request for you. I told them I'd find you and speak to you about it. Sarutobi-sensei sent me to find you. The Sannin woman blinked in surprise. Sarutobi-sensei? She noticed the violet-haired girl giving her an angry-looking frown. What's this about? Jiraiya gave a sigh and motioned for her to follow. Come on. I'll explain it over dinner. I'm hungry anyway. The group ended up in a booth in a nearby restaurant. It was a large round table and they all sat together. They had all ordered and the meal was partially eaten in front of them. Tsunade spoke up. Now, what's this about? The annoyed-looking girl with purple hair spoke up. Wait. I challenge you. Jiraiya got wide-eyed. Huh? Naruto and Sakura looked just as annoyed. Tsunade and Shizune both looked at the girl in confusion. The blonde woman stood up and smirked at her as she crossed her arms. A challenge? Kira nodded with her eyes firm as she slapped the table. That's right. You witch. How dare you? I challenge you for the title of the legendary sucker. Everyone at the table just looked at her with their jaw hanging. Naruto managed to speak up first. Huh? Tsunade was just wide-eyed and her arms fell to her side. What? Kira looked very serious. I am the legendary sucker. I've won the title fair and square every 10 years for the last 100 years. Who do you think you are? I challenge you to a contest. Jiraiya's face lit up. Oh. What a wonderful idea. Naruto looked confused. What the hell? Sakura didn't look any better off. Why would you want that title? Tsunade and Shizune had both gone a little pale. The blonde woman gave a small cough. You want that title? The violet-haired girl growled and nodded. Damn right. I won it fair and square. We'll have a contest. The boss can judge. She jabbed her finger at Naruto. Jiraiya spoke up. Wait. We'll need more than one judge. Just to be certain that it's impartial. I, Jiraiya, would be glad to offer my assistance. The violet-haired girl nodded. Whatever. There's no way I'm giving it up to this tramp. It's mine. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at the girl. Now look here, you little. Kira crossed her arms and turned up her nose. If you can defeat me, I'll even give up the trophy. She reached into her robes and pulled out a 5-foot trophy that she then slammed onto the table. Tsunade looked at it with wide eyes. It was huge, with a golden cup at the top, with a small statue on top of it. At the bottom, the name, Kira Kitsune, was engraved over the words, the legendary sucker. The woman went a little pale as she realized just what the statue at the top of the trophy was of. Sakura looked at the engraving. What is this? Naruto tapped her shoulder. He was turning a little red as she looked at him. His eyes were shifted away as he jerked his thumb up towards the top of the trophy. The kunoichi covered her mouth as she looked up at it and gasped. On top of the trophy was a statue of a man and a woman. The man was standing with his fists balled up on his hips with a huge grin on his face, and the woman was on her knees in front of him with her face in his crotch. Oh. Jiraiya looked quite serious as he stood up and took Tsunade by her shoulder. You should defend your honor. You cannot allow such a challenge to go unanswered. Naruto and I will be glad to help you with this contest. Won't we, Naruto? He gave him a look that promised pain if he refused. The boy made a choking sound in response to that. He sank into his seat a little more and turned a little more red. Shizune had much the same expression. Well, Tsunade growled as she glared at her. Shut the hell up. She turned towards the girl who had challenged her. Look. Where the hell do you get off calling me a tramp, you little harlot? Kira interrupted. Huh. I'm a bigger tramp than you'll ever be. Don't go saying that you're better. You're 100 years too young to defeat me. The blonde woman got wide-eyed. Too young? She flushed. It was hard to be angry with the girl, but she couldn't just forgive her either. Jiraiya looked very eager. It's a serious challenge. You shouldn't ignore it. Kira balled up her fists. I shall defend my title, my honor. The commotion had gotten the attention of a great deal of the people gathered in the restaurant. Many of the men were up from their seats and had started to linger nearby. A worthy challenge. Let us know if we can be of any help. Right, you need more than 2 to judge such a contest. Shizune was very red. She took the violet-haired girl by her shoulder and leaned in to whisper something into her ear. Kira's face fell. Huh? She got a rather blank expression on her face and looked at the dark-haired woman. Really? The Sannin woman's companion gave a nod and looked away. There was a crashing noise nearby, and the ground shook for a moment. The violet-haired girl looked at the blonde woman's frown. So. It's about. Gambling? Tsunade turned a bit pink. What kind of girl are you? Jiraiya was already on the ground with several large lumps on the back of his head in a small crater. Kira cocked her head. A total slut. She seemed to think on it. I suppose I can forgive you then. Just watch it. She narrowed her eyes and crossed her arms as she sat down. Naruto looked a bit horrified. You won a contest? The violet-haired girl nodded. Yes. It's held during the Great Kitsune Festival every 10 years in Shadow Realm. Winning is a great honor. Kurama and Masara won 2nd and 3rd place last time. The boy had gone a little pale. What? Jiraiya had managed to crawl back into the booth. Sakura looked both disgusted and annoyed. Shizune was holding her face, being grateful no one died. Tsunade took her seat again as well. Shadow Realm? You're a kitsune then? She seemed to relax a little. It made a bit more sense at that point and she seemed to forget about it. The violet-haired girl nodded. That's right. That title is mine. She seemed a bit miffed still. I suppose I can overlook it, seeing as it's not the same thing, I guess. She cocked her head. Kind of a shame though. I could use a little decent competition. It would have been good for the boss if she'd found such a person to challenge. At the very least, it would have made getting started with his training easier. She was a little disappointed, to be honest. Naruto had shifted away from her a little. Are you kidding? The kitsune girl grinned at him and gave him a dangerous look. No. Why do you think I was selected to train you? You'll need it. The boy was confused. What? Train me? What do you mean? What's that got to do with it? Sakura had gone a little pale and was looking at her with a slack jaw. Wait, you mean? The kitsune shrugged and nodded at her with a subdued grin as she leaned in to whisper to the girl. Yeah. Pretty much. He's got to know what he's doing, or the queen will. Be a bit much. Sakura's face fell as she pointed at her plate. Don't tell me gross things like that. I'm eating. Tsunade coughed. Forget about that. What are you doing here? Jiraiya gave a heavy sigh. It was worth a shot. Shizune seemed to calm a little more. Please don't tell me this is why. Sakura shook her head. No. That's not it at all. Naruto nodded and seemed very glad the moment had passed. He still wasn't sure what was going on. He didn't think he wanted to know. No. Konoha needs someone with your skill. Jiraiya nodded. That's right. There's been an unusual injury. No one in Konoha can deal with it. Someone with your level of mastery is needed. Tsunade looked at her plate and frowned. An injury? She gripped the edge of the table. Jiraiya nodded. Yes. It's difficult to explain. This girl is here to help explain it. Sakura nodded. It involves the Shin Ten Shin and a shadow clone. It happened during the Chunin exams. She possessed a clone that I made, and when it was broken, something happened to her body. Now her mind is stuck inside my head, and her body isn't stable enough to hold it. Please, we need you. I've heard you're the only one who can help. She looked up at her with pleading eyes. Shizune gasped and put her hand over her mouth. What? Tsunade frowned at the girl. No. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. Jiraiya gave a heavy sigh. There's no one else who can. She growled at him. Well, neither can I. The two young nin looked at her with wide eyes. Naruto hung his head. Damn. Why not? Sakura stood up and slammed her palms on the tabletop. Tsunade frowned at her. You don't need to know why not. I'm not a medical nin any longer. I gave up that life. The pink-haired Kunoichi frowned back and looked her in her eyes. You swore an oath. The woman turned her head away. So what? It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. So, you're telling me that you can help, but you don't want to? Sakura was getting upset. Kira gave a nod. Yes. I know that's true. Your skills as a medical nin are legendary, very well known. Tsunade stood up. What does it matter? You knew the dangers of taking that exam, but chose to do it anyway. Now, you should just live with it. The pink-haired Kunoichi growled in anger. I'm not giving up. I won't abandon her. The blonde woman gave a snort. So what? Don't act like you're doing this for someone else. You're doing this for you. Do you think I'm foolish? The pink-haired girl gasped and hung her head as a few tears fell down her cheeks. I'm doing this for both of us. Ino was my friend, and I treated her horribly before this happened. I don't care what I have to do. I can't let it end this way if there's anything I can do to prevent it. Tsunade turned away. You're not the only one who has to live with guilt. Shizune. Her companion hung her head and looked over at the girl. I'm sorry. Jiraiya had remained calm through all of it. That's not all, Tsunade. The blonde woman growled and looked at him with a little rage in her eyes. The man didn't look at her and spoke. The third has issued a request for you to become the fifth Hokage. Naruto and Sakura both looked at the man with wide eyes. The pink-haired girl looked shocked. What? This selfish bitch? Her? Hokage? Naruto seemed confused. Jiraiya gave a nod. She's the granddaughter of the first. She's a top-rated ninja, and no one else would do for the job. She was the one who brought us victory in battle. No one has been able to acquire her techniques. It was decided by Sarutobi that she was the best person for the job. Neither of you has any say in the matter. I thought we came here to get her to help with Ino? Sakura looked a little hurt. If she becomes the fifth, she'll have to return to Konoha, and she can look after your friend. Don't worry so much. The man turned his attention towards Tsunade again. So? What's your answer? She'd taken a seat again and poured herself some more sake. She gulped down a few shots and gasped. Impossible. I decline. Naruto had his arms crossed. Well, if you can't help us, do you know anyone who can? Someone who might be more willing. She frowned at him. No. I don't. The boy gave a heavy sigh. Then, I'm afraid we've got no choice but to keep bothering you until you say yes. I'm not willing to give up this easily. Sakura gave a firm nod. That's right. I'd rather die than give up on Ino. The woman narrowed her eyes at him. Who is this brat? She's worse than your last student. Jiraiya scratched his head. Her name is Haruno Sakura. I wouldn't really call her a student. I've been training with her a bit, it's true. She's a smart girl though, full of spirit. He smiled at her and jerked his thumb at Naruto. He's the student, she's a friend of his, and they're quite a pair. The boy just looked at her and said nothing. Sakura seemed annoyed with him. Don't make it sound like we're dating. Kira grabbed his arm. Yeah. I'm his slut, not her. The boy's head hit the tabletop. Please, stop telling people that. Tsunade gave a snort. Well, he's nothing to your last student in looks and intelligence. Kira seemed confused. What? He looks just like him, he's smarter too. The woman gave a snort. Don't be stupid, what would you know? The violet-haired girl shrugged. I remember him. I'm older than you, and I know how old you really are. She added the last part when Tsunade started to speak. The woman went quiet. I'm more than 200 years old, and I've lived around Konohagakure for most of it. He looks just like the fourth, and he's smarter than he ever was. Tsunade frowned at her. Then let him be Hokage. The fourth died quickly, and gave up his life for Konoha. Life isn't like money, it shouldn't be gambled that easily. Whoever puts it at risk so easily is a fool. Sakura snorted. The third is still here. He's older than you. The woman frowned at her. That doesn't mean anything. He just had more luck than the others. Someday, he'll die just like them. Being Hokage is a shitty job. Only a fool would take it. The pink-haired girl growled. Everybody dies. It's how we live that's important. Someone who only lives for their self isn't worthy of even being a ninja, much less Hokage. Naruto gave a nod. She's right, you know. You're just a selfish brat. Tsunade leaned in to Sakura. You only care about solving this problem because it affects you. Do you expect me to think you'd be here if it didn't? Who are you to tell me about not caring about others? The girl slammed her palms on the table and glared her in the eyes. If I have to give up my life to save Ino, I will. I don't care what it takes. I'll go around the world as many times as I need to. I'll follow you into hell itself and drag you back to do it. Shizune looked a bit worried. Please, calm down. She grabbed Tsunade's arm. The blonde woman reared her head back and laughed. You? Drag me back? Huh. You selfish old hag. Sakura tried to jump across the table. Going on like you've got anything to care about. I'll kick your ass. Oh boy. Naruto shook his head as Jiraiya grabbed the back of her shirt. Tsunade stood up and put her foot on the table. You've got some guts saying something like that to me. Let's take this outside then. Kira looked at Naruto. This is a bad idea. The hooded nin nodded. I know. I'm pretty sure this is that other girl again though. Sakura frowned at him. No, it isn't. She's pissed me off. That selfish old witch. Ino or not, I want to kick her ass. Tsunade looked relaxed. I'm one of the legendary 3 ninja. I don't have to take a fight with one little girl seriously. Shut up. Sakura jabbed her finger at her. Calm down or you'll definitely get your ass kicked. Naruto stood next to Jiraiya and Kira. It won't matter anyway. Jiraiya gave a sigh and shook his head. Tsunade pointed a single finger. One finger should be enough. Sakura growled and crouched. Cocky old hag. Shizune noticed Tsunade's eye twitch a little. Tsunade, please. She's just a kid. Both of them looked surprised and gasped as the girl blurred and vanished from in front of them. Tsunade growled as she looked about. What the? She ducked low as Sakura's foot passed over her and spun around. The girl dashed back a short way and dodged as the blonde swiped at her with her finger. The young Kunoichi vanished again. Naruto chuckled. Oh. Not as easy as you thought? The blonde woman glanced at him and growled. Jiraiya looked a bit surprised. Toying with her is dangerous. Careful. Tsunade jumped up as 2 of Sakura appeared on either side of her. They both blocked kicks from each other and dashed apart as the woman came down and took more swipes at her with her finger extended. She's fast. The Sannin rolled forward and thrust her finger forward. Sakura took a blow in the gut as she seemed to blur and appear right into the blow. The girl flew away and rolled over the dirt. After a moment of coughing and struggling to her knees, she growled and glared forward. Tsunade shifted sideways as another of the girl kicked at her and poked her finger into her forehead. The other pink-haired girl flew back and vanished. Shadow clones? Interesting. She seemed amused. The real Sakura charged forward again, rushing past Naruto and Jiraiya with a kunai in her grip. She had a serious frown on her face as she pulled it back to ready a stab. Tsunade just looked on and focused her attention on the girl. She started to strike by jabbing her finger forward, but a foot passed by the side of her head that forced her to shift sideways and roll across the dirt just as the girl stabbed at her from the front. She'd almost taken the blow and growled as she stood up again. Another Sakura had blindsided her from above, and her shirt had a small hole at the side of her belly. What the? Sakura frowned as she readied her kunai again with the clone beside her. She moved to attack from either side of the woman while she stood back up. This time, Tsunade tapped the side of her wrist, spun around the blow, and jabbed the clone in the forehead as it tried to jump at her as she dodged. It vanished, and Sakura was sprawled across the dirt with her weapon clattering across the ground ahead of her. Tsunade jumped into the air to come down on top of her, intending to pin her on the ground with her foot. She had a smirk on her face, but it died as the girl rolled over and started to stand while she was in the air. What? There was a ball of chakra forming in her hand and a glare in the young Kunoichi's eyes. You won't beat me so easy. Tsunade extended her body, moving over the ball of power as the young girl extended her palms out. She kicked her dead in the forehead with the end of her big toe and sent her flying into the wall of a nearby building, cracking the clay, and sending her slumping to the ground on her rear. The woman looked at her leg. The end of her right pant leg was shredded a bit. What? Rasengan? Sakura couldn't move, she'd had the wind knocked out of her. Shizune was beside her trying to help her. Are you okay? Naruto walked over and grinned back at Tsunade. She couldn't see it from behind his scarf. Well, looks like one finger wasn't enough after all. Was it? The woman glared at him. She turned towards Jiraiya. Rasengan? You've been teaching this girl Rasengan? Her lips turned down. Only you and the fourth can perform that technique. What right do you have to show something like that to this girl? Naruto spoke up with Sakura leaning against his shoulder. Shizune was helping him a little. I asked him to. Tsunade snorted at him. What? Who are you anyway? Why should that matter? Uzumaki Naruto. The boy answered. Who are you to say whose right it is to teach that to anyone anyway? I'm pretty sure I've got more say in the matter than you do. The Nine-Tails kid? I see. The woman turned towards Jiraiya. Teaching this girl a technique she can't possibly perform? You should be ashamed. Even if he did ask you to. The man looked away and flushed a bit. He wouldn't let me teach him by himself. I wasn't planning on including her, but I had to bring her along. Sakura pushed off Naruto's shoulder. Who are you to tell me what I can't do? I only need another week, and I'll have it mastered. Tsunade just smiled at her. Some words, brat. A woman should never take her words back. Sakura grinned at her and balled up her fist. What do you mean? You didn't beat me with just one finger, did you? Tsunade glowered at her. Shizune flushed and looked away. She's right, you know. Naruto gave a nod and seemed pleased. Yeah, she is. The blonde woman glanced at her. Whose side are you on? Shut up. She turned to face the girl. If you can master that technique in a week, I'll give you this necklace. The raven-haired woman gasped. Tsunade. That's your most precious. Sakura gave a rough snort. I don't want it. It's tacky. She turned her head away and seemed even more annoyed. Jiraiya spoke up. Don't say that, Sakura. That necklace is a very unique and valuable ore that belonged to the first Hokage. If you sold it, you could buy 3 mountains. Naruto looked impressed. Hey. You can do it. Might not get another chance at something like that. Sakura glared at Tsunade and shoved him aside. I don't care what it's worth. I don't want it. If I can learn this technique in a week, you make me your apprentice. Everyone looked at the girl with wide eyes and hanging jaws. Sakura balled up her fist and looked at the woman with her eyebrows furrowed and a glare in her eyes. If you don't want to help Ino, fine. Then show me how to do it myself, and you won't have to. I'll take care of it myself. She swiped at the air and looked the woman dead in the eyes. I won't give up, and I'll follow you to the ends of the earth if you refuse. I might not be strong enough to drag you back now, but someday I will be. You can count on it. Tsunade frowned at her. I'll agree, on one condition. Shizune gasped. Tsunade. Sakura just gave a firm nod. Sure, anything you want. The woman smirked at her. If you fail, you go home, and never bother me again. Give up on your friend, and get on with your life. Learn to deal with it. Naruto looked at the expression on Sakura's face. She got wide-eyed and her jaw was slacked. He said nothing and kept his arms crossed as he gave her a small nod. Shizune hung her head and looked away. She looked a little relieved. The situation had scared her. Tsunade had never gambled with that necklace before. Not once, she knew what it meant to her. Sakura nodded. I accept. Tsunade turned away and started walking off. Shizune, come on. Her companion moved off after her and glanced at the children. Jiraiya gave a heavy sigh. Well, I guess it's all up to you. Naruto shrugged. She can do it. He didn't say anything, but Jiraiya wasn't exactly right. He never promised anything. Even if Sakura had to go home, he'd never agreed to give up himself. We'll be fine. Of course, he wasn't about to say that to Sakura until the mess was over with. Sakura hung her head and held her shoulders. Come on. I'm tired. Kira nodded and moved up to Naruto's side. If the girl lost and had to return to Konoha, she'd only have to get him away from the old pervert. That would make things easier for her. Still, there wasn't much she could do to stop the girl from learning at that point. She already had most of the technique. It was kind of annoying, but she didn't really want to see the Sannin win that much anyway. She had plenty of time to work on training the boss regardless. In a tiny stall, Jiraiya sipped from a cup of sake while Tsunade sat by his side. It was evening, and Shizune had left his 2 students by themselves to spend the night in their rooms. The 2 Sannin were chatting and having a good time. The man laughed and gave her a sidelong glance, saying, "It's been a long time." Tsunade gave a nod and returned the drink. So it has. Jiraiya folded his hands in front of his mouth and looked straight ahead, saying, "What's gotten into you? You were pretty careless." "What do you mean?" she asked, averting her eyes. He gave her a half-cocked smile and peered at the back of her head. "I know that necklace of yours means a lot to you. I have to admit, I'm surprised you've not gambled it away by now." She took another sip from the tiny cup and appeared to calm down a bit. I'm not worried. The man gave a nod. Well, she refused it. Now you've just got to worry about taking on a student. Tsunade looked chuckled. Why would I worry about that? It's not like that girl can. Her reply was cut off by her companion. You know. I only started teaching it to her because of him. I didn't think she could get it. I had only meant for him to learn it. Now you've gone and upset him though. The female smirked at him. I've upset him? He didn't seem upset. The man laughed. You don't know him. He's nothing like his father, serious and intelligent like his mother. If he's upset, you won't find out until he does something about it. Tsunade laughed. What's that got to do with that girl? Why should I care about how upset he is? What's he going to do? With a somewhat smug, half-drunk smile, he leaned on his palm and said, he's going to make sure she learns that technique. You've actually ruined my plans. There's no way she won't learn it now. He thinks of bringing you back to Konoha as a mission, and he won't accept failure. Don't think you've gotten rid of him if that girl can't manage the technique for some reason. He's got no intention of giving up, and you won't get rid of him by tricking him into some sort of game. Tsunade gave a slight growl. Is that so? Jiraiya looked a little irritated at the thought and sighed, I don't expect her to fail. Not after you've gotten him so worked up about this now. The woman scowled and swallowed several more gulps. What's so special about that boy anyway? He didn't talk much. What's with him and that pervert girl with him? Jiraiya shook his head, stroking the bar counter with his finger. Naruto? He's married to the Nine Tails, it's not inside him anymore. He formed a contract with it that protects Konohagakure. On top of that, he's the youngest Junin of his generation. Orochimaru attacked Konoha recently, and that boy not only stood against him, but saved Sarutobi Sensei's life doing it. He's a tactical genius, he won't try to overpower you, but he's smart enough to trick you. They're using the tactics manual he authored at the academy in Konoha now. Oh, and he's the king of the Kitsune, his little girlfriend is one of his subjects. I'm not sure just how aware of that he is. He smiled. Don't go thinking that you'll have an easy time of it if you manage to get rid of that girl with this little game of yours. Naruto will be much more difficult to dissuade or trick. She glared at him, the countertop cracking under her grip. I'll remember that. Sanin, with white hair, gave a nod. Yes. It would be wise. I suggest watching your back if it comes down to that. He won't try anything unless Sakura fails, but if he has his way, you won't even see it coming. The woman's expression hardened. Not much chance of that happening. Her partner gave a nod. He took another sip and appeared to consider it himself before saying, maybe. If there's anyone who can pull it off, it's him. He's a bit annoying, a little immature, and naive, but he's anything but stupid. I've been teaching him and his little Kunoichi friend Rasengan for less than a month now. Because of him, both of them are nearing the end of the third stage of the training. Tsunade laughed and shook her head. You're still a fool. There's no way that bratty little girl is going to learn something like that in a week. She'll never master that kind of technique. He gave a nod. When I started this trip, that's what I thought too. That's foolish. They're just children. Sarutobi made that boy a Junin? Leaf must be pretty pathetic these days. Remaining seated, Jiraiya took another swig. He gave her a look. You know, Sarutobi Sensei wishes to retire. I think it was because of this incident with Orochimaru. He almost got himself killed. Tsunade's eyes hardened and her tone turned slightly mocking as she asked, he's afraid? The man with white hair gave a headshake. He's old, and he's not getting any stronger. I think he's realized the time to pass it on has come. I don't think he's very happy about it. She gave him a narrowed look. I don't want the job. He gave her a look. That wasn't the point. She started to get irritated with him and asked, what the hell is it then? If this hadn't happened, and he decided to remain Hokage for another 5 years, I expect Naruto would have been the 5th. Jiraiya's face twisted as he spoke, staring straight ahead and bending over his folded hands. What? That kid? Are you joking? Jiraiya gave a shrug. Maybe. I don't think he decided definitely, but I do get the feeling he was considering it. Kids can change as they get older. I can't say for sure, but I think Naruto had become his top prospect. I sort of understand why. Tsunade scoffed at that. That kid is nothing. You're a poor judge of character. Jiraiya nodded. Maybe. I don't think Sarutobi Sensei is though. He was right about us. He's to be trained as an ANBU with that girl when we return. The female gave a headshake. Right about us. Look what happened to Orochimaru. Look at me. You're just a perverted wanderer. Good judge of character indeed. Senin, who had white hair, laughed at that. You've become cynical. She poured another drink, scowling at him with the bottle dangling between her fingers. Age will do that. He gave a nod. Indeed. Tsunade rolled her eyes and sighed slightly. That kid is Hokage? What a laugh that is. Maybe. He said it used to be his dream to be Hokage. I think it still is, but he won't say it. The man laughed. That boy, he'll be important to the future of Konoha. That much I'm sure of. She scowled but didn't appear to be angry with him. That used to be us, and look how that turned out. He gave her a smile. I'm beginning to see what Sarutobi Sensei sees in him. It's strange, but he's more like his father than he seems. Konoha seems to think of him as a hero. I'm starting to believe in him as well. She averted her gaze. Then you're bound to be disappointed. They hated him once. What he represented. He didn't have the best childhood. He was shaking his head. Now, I doubt I can find more than a handful who would speak ill of him in that village any longer. Despite everything, against all odds, they respect him. Tsunade turned to face him, her expression expressionless. Sounds like an arrogant punk to me. Jiraiya gave her a shoulder slap as he got to his feet. You'd think he hasn't noticed, to be honest. He's confident, but anything but arrogant. She gave a single nod and finished her drink. Whatever. What do I care anyway? In a few days, that girl will be out of my hair. That boy won't last a week after she's gone. I don't think I'll have much trouble changing his mind if he doesn't give up. Do not be so certain. He has never done so before. If he had, he wouldn't be in this position now. Disregard Sarutobi Sensei's assessment. He doesn't give anything to anyone who hasn't earned it. You can't dispute that much. He turned away, popped his back, and waved over his shoulder. I'll see you later. I should head back. She nodded, not even sure if he noticed, and folded her hands, staring forward without saying anything. With his back to a tree, Naruto was seated. Sakura was cutting a few more gouges into a tree nearby with the ball of chakra she still hadn't completely compressed, and she was grunting with the effort. He was very calm, his eyes closed, and it had been 3 days. Just above him, in the tree he was leaning against, was a hole the size of his head. Since the girl had challenged the Sannin woman, nothing noteworthy had happened. The kunoichi sat down and appeared to ease up as she cast a scowl at the boy wearing a mask and hood. She was clearly annoyed that he had gotten it before her. The fact that he had met those expectations with seemingly little difficulty irritated her a little, even though she'd kind of expected it. He calmed down a bit and turned to face her, saying, "Relax. You can do it, I'm sure of it." Looking at her hands, she scowled, "I've only got 4 days of training left." He popped his shoulder, rotated his arm, and leaned forward, saying, "Well, you're almost there. Relax, it's easier if you don't try and force it." He formed the ball of chakra in his palm and showed it to the girl, who watched. He had to focus for a moment before he could move his hand over his open palm. It hovered over his palm like a perfect sphere, whirring with power and glowing. Before he scattered it, Sakura looked at it and tried to understand what he was doing. "Well, I've still not gotten it yet." With a nod, the boy shut his eyes. "You will. Don't worry so much. If you get frustrated, it will just make it more difficult. Besides, the best I can do is show you at this point." She straightened and turned back to the tree. Right. I can do this. I have to. I can't fail. Ino is depending on me. A short distance away, in the middle of a small grove of trees, Sakura lay flat on her face. Ouch. Her teacher was standing close by, leaning against a tree with his arms crossed. All right, 20 push-ups isn't too bad at this point. Roll over and do some stomach crunches for a bit to give your arms a break. The girl fell to her side, appearing irritated. Yeah. This sucks. It's like I'm getting my body in shape all over again. Uzumaki gave a nod. Pretty much. Man, I can't wait to get my hands on Sasuke for this. I wonder how much he'll whine. It will be awesome. The girl with pink hair gave him a growl. She remained silent, though, because if she had found him to be somewhat sadistic, he would have been. The boy laughed at her expression. You know, I had to do all this too. Don't look like that, it's not so bad. Sakura began by tightening her stomach muscles and raising her torso off the floor. He was right, as much as it pained her to say it. It didn't seem any worse than when she had started the Academy's physical training program, and it was moving along much more quickly. A meal was laid out in front of the three nin that evening as they sat around the table with the Kitsune girl. Sakura was filthy, with a scowl on her face and disheveled hair. She appeared to be about ready to pass out, with one eye drooping partially closed. Nevertheless, she was eating quite voraciously, shoving rice into her mouth with her chopsticks. As he ate, Naruto appeared happier and much more at ease. From the corner of his eye, Jiraiya cast a quick glance at the two. How is your training going? With a look of satisfaction, the hooded nin said, I've got the Rasengan down now. Sakura complained, I've never been so sore and tired in my entire life, in between mouthfuls of food. She knew that she wouldn't even be able to move sufficiently to eat if it weren't for Naruto's training. And even after she broke her jutsu and came back, it made her body hurt even more. She was almost completely depleted of her chakra and needed some rest. Senin, who had white hair, laughed. Yes. I noticed that training you've been doing on the side. I do wonder if it's making it more difficult to learn the technique? The young man shrugged. Didn't hurt me. She's not using chakra to do it either. That's kind of the point. The man nodded after appearing to consider it. I suppose you're right. Sakura let out a little sigh. It leaves me even more sore in the evening, but as much as I hate to say it, I think it's actually helping me with the Rasengan. I've still not gotten it, but I'm much better than I was before. I'm sure I'll learn it in time. What he's teaching me doesn't use chakra, so it doesn't hurt the Rasengan training. In an odd way, it helps with my control as well. Naruto gave a nod. It's not so odd. It's a form of chakra control as well in its own way. Sitting next to Naruto, Kira was nibbling on a bowl of rice. While eating silently, she kept a watchful eye on the two of them. The hooded nin was consuming the last of a bowl of ramen when he stretched his arms and swallowed the remaining warm broth. He got up and headed back towards the room, saying, Well, I'm done. I'm gonna go get some rest. Sakura watched him with a hint of jealousy and moaned, Right. I want to go to sleep right now, but I'm so hungry. Kira followed the hooded boy up the stairs to their room without saying anything. The girl kept eating, but Jiraiya seemed more interested in tending to a small flask of warm sake. He raised an eyebrow, glancing over to where Kira and Naruto had been. The fox girl had been sitting at a table with a small bottle on it. I guess I'm on my own tonight. The kunoichi asked him, Huh? A few shoots sticking out of her mouth. He gave a headshake. Nothing, just thinking to myself. Pretending to be heading towards the room she shared with Sakura, Kira watched Naruto enter his room and grinned until he disappeared from view. She grinned as she leaned against the outside of his door and glanced up at the ceiling. 3, 2, 1. Something thumped from inside the space. Opening the door, she looked down at Naruto and laughed to herself. Halfway through removing his shirt, he lay face down on the floor in the center of the room. Hey. Trying to press his hand against his forehead, Naruto moaned. As he failed and complained to himself, his eyes grew more tightly squeezed. Huh? What the? He woke up to a familiar voice saying, "Oh good. You're awake now." The room was a dark and gray blur. It was still nighttime, and the only sound in the room was the sultry voice of the woman greeting him. In his blurry vision, he could make out a pale face and a blurb of violet hair above him. "Kira? What's going on?" he asked. He pulled on his wrists and a tiny metallic clinking sound was produced. Her voice was quiet and reserved. "Well, you've learned that Rasengan thing, right?" "Yeah?" As his vision cleared, he noticed that her face was slightly larger than his own. She was straddling his belly and grinning broadly at him while he lay on his back in bed. She sounded happy but kept her voice down. "So, now it's my turn for training." The boy raised his gaze to his outstretched arms above his head. His eyes widened slightly upon discovering that he was handcuffed to the headboard. He turned away, not wanting to look at her again, but instead he saw a very naked girl sitting on top of him, saying, "Oh." Worse still, he was fairly certain that his clothes had vanished. The young boy, who was blonde, gazed at her nude and somewhat voluptuous breasts with wide eyes. She appeared happy. "Good boy." Pulling on the chains once more, he glanced up at his hand before turning back to face her. He needed to find a way out. "Look, you don't have to do this." She rubbed her hand against his cheek, blinked, and smiled at him sweetly. "Yes, I do." He gave a headshake. "No, you don't. Really, I don't mind. I don't want you to think that you've got to." Head cocked, the kitsune did. "Neither do I, but I really do have to do this." Wait," she said, moving slightly. "Look, Her smile vanished as she covered his mouth with her hand. "Look. Why do you think I'm here? I'm under direct orders from the queen, you know. I can't exactly say no to her. Masara and Kurama were supposed to take care of this, but you said something about not being comfortable with males, so they called me in." He was perspiring profusely. "I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with this either." "You really don't have to do this. I'll talk to her and..." She giggled and smiled again. She sat up and rubbed his chest, saying, "Boss. Look. It's true I'm under orders, but I'm a total slut. I like this duty. I don't mind at all, and you're not. What's the best way to put it? Defiling me or maybe taking my innocence? Well, I'm not a virgin. You're not really doing anything to me. I volunteered for this. On top of that, I'm the most qualified one for the job." She gently rubbed her nose against his neck. "You understand, right?" As best he could, Naruto was stalling, asking, no?" The chains were too strong for him to break, and his lockpicks were missing. He was unable to obtain sufficient leverage to free himself by using the heavy wooden headboard. With a heavy sigh, she leaned against his chest. "Look. It's training. If I don't do this, well, the queen is going to be trouble for you. We'll start with just the two of us, and later, after you're comfortable with it, I'll have you make a few of those clones." She gave him a kiss and laughed. "You've got a lot of stamina, I'm looking forward to it." He pressed his head deeper into the pillow and squeezed his eyes shut, saying, "I'm not getting out of this, am I?" She had a smile on her face. "I'm afraid not." She reached back behind her back with her right hand, and as soon as she made contact with what she was searching for behind her, the Rasengan ball he was attempting to conceal and keep her from seeing disappeared. His eyes widened. She noticed his attempt to break free from his bonds with the chakra ball, and for a moment her smile turned very evil. "Looking. Sorry, you're not getting out of this so easy. Be a good boy and relax. It's my duty after all, and I want to show you how I won that trophy you saw when we met that old woman." She began sliding down his chest and kissing his cheek, and Naruto swallowed hard. For a brief moment, he began to make another Rasengan, but his whole body tensed up. He then relaxed as he settled into his pillow, and his eyes suddenly became very calm. "Hey, that's not so." He exhaled heavily as he pressed his head deeper into the pillow, and his body jerked violently tense once more. It was best, he decided, not to try to break the handcuffs one more. The following morning, Naruto stumbled out of his room with a somewhat bewildered expression. When he'd woken up, his chains were gone, and the young kitsune girl was curled up next to him in the nude. After a slight stumble, he managed to put on his clothes and noticed Jiraiya smiling at him as he left his room. The senin gave him a shoulder slap. "Good morning." The boy looked at him rather bleakly. His hair was a little messy and stuck out of his hood at strange angles. The man bent forward and raised his pinky. "So, how did it go? Did you enjoy yourself?" he inquired. Naruto inclined his head and appeared to consider the matter. He didn't appear to be fully present. He glanced back up at the man after a brief interval. "My pipes are cleaned." The recluse laughed heartily and smacked him on the shoulder once more. "Well, that's reason to celebrate. You've finally become a man. Your father would be proud." Naruto appeared perplexed. "He would?" Jiraiya appeared to consider it for a moment. "Well, yes. I'm not so sure I'd tell your mother though. Come on, we'll get some breakfast." The pair were sitting down at the table a few moments later. Jiraiya had practically forced him to down a few small cups of sake as they waited on their meal. The man spoke up. "So, did you like it? What happened?" Naruto was a little flushed, and the Sannin didn't try and give him any more alcohol as he took a few more drinks for himself. I guess. She drugged my food last night and chained me to the bed." The white-haired man gave a serious nod. "Well, it was for the best, I'm sure." Sakura came down the stairs with a small scowl on her face as she looked behind her. "Where were you last night? What's with you anyway?" Kira was on her way down the stairs as well. She was dressed in a yukata that was smaller than it should have been as usual, and seemed subdued, but had a very cheerful grin on her face. "Nothing, just had some business to see to. I probably won't be staying in the same room as you again for this trip." The kunoichi gave a rough snort. "I guess I get the room to myself then." She didn't mind much, the kitsune girl didn't talk much and pretty much just went to sleep. Neither one of them spent much more time than that in the room. Kira nodded and slid in next to Naruto. "Yeah. Pretty much." The boy looked tired and dazed still. He didn't say anything and seemed to ignore them both. Sakura narrowed her eyes at him. "What's with you?" He shrugged. "Long night." She frowned at him. "Did something happen?" Jiraiya spoke up. "No, he just had some training to do last night. Private stuff." With that, the food arrived and the pink-haired girl brushed it off. She had enough to worry about that day with her own training. 2 nights later, Sakura opened the door to her room and frowned. "Oh. It's you. What do you need?" The woman who had been with Tsunade was standing outside her door. She didn't have any reason to dislike the woman and kept her tone polite. Shizune looked down the hall over her shoulder. "I wanted to talk with you about Tsunade." The girl blinked in surprise. "What about her?" She looked to get a little irate. The dark-haired kunoichi's lips turned down a little. "Please, don't think badly of her. You don't understand her." The girl put her hand on her hip and frowned. "She's been a rotten witch so far." Shizune hung her head a little. "You wouldn't understand. That necklace, it's very special to her. Her most prized possession, it means more to her than her own life. It's not something she's ever bet before." The young kunoichi's face softened. "You're worried about her?" The dark-haired woman gave a nod. "A little. That necklace is cursed, it only responds to Tsunade. Any who possess it but her die." Sakura shook her head. "Why does that matter? I already refused it. This isn't about some jewelry. I'll do anything to help my friend. Even if I have to spend 10 years under her as her student, even if I have to do it myself. I will not fail Ino. I won't give up." That caught Shizune off guard a little. "You were close with this girl?" The girl turned her eyes away. "Once. I wasn't kind to her. We became rivals, and before it happened, I said some things. When we were younger, we were good friends. Then, well, it was over a boy. I feel kind of stupid about it now." The woman gave a nod. "I see. What do you care?" I'm not interested in taking your place. I don't care if she becomes the next Hokage or not. Sakura didn't seem hostile and let her into the room before sitting on the bed. I care about Tsunade. I owe her more than I can repay. The woman sat down next to her. She told her about the young boy who had been the first recipient of the cursed necklace, and the man who had won Tsunade's heart, and met a tragic end after receiving it. When the story was finished, Sakura had her head hung. I see. Shizune gave a nod. Tsunade has had a difficult life. She's not a terrible person. Please, don't. Sakura let a few tears fall and stood up. I can't say I understand. I've never lost a friend or someone I care about that way. She balled up her fist. I know that as a ninja, someday I will be forced to face it. She turned to glare at the woman. That doesn't mean I will willingly allow it to happen. I will do anything I can to prevent it. I'll protect my friends, the people I care about with my life if I have to. Just because someday I will feel that pain, does not mean that I will just allow it to happen now, and forget about the ones I can still save. She closed her eyes and lifted her nose. Ino wasn't on my team, but she's a member of my village and a comrade. Ninja who don't look after their comrades are lower than trash. Shizune looked at her with wide eyes. I see. The girl turned towards the door and opened it, leaving the woman sitting on her bed. The older Kunoichi stood up and looked confused. Wait. Where are you going? The young Chunin looked over her shoulder at her. To train. I'm not getting any sleep tonight. No point in wasting time. I won't give up. Naruto smiled as he sat just outside the window to the room on the roof and looked up at the sky. It was a clear night, and the moon and stars gave the street a pale glow. What are you doing here? You little pervert. The hooded boy cocked his head and looked over to find Tsunade standing next to him with a scowl on her face and her hand on her hip. I suppose I can't deny that. He scratched his head and stood up to face her. Still, I'm here to learn about my target. Her features fell and her hand fell away from her hip. Target? He nodded. You think you're strong enough to take me? She sounded half annoyed, half amused. The boy gave a small shrug. Not really. I would never try to fight you head on. She narrowed her eyes and snarled at him. You'll get yourself killed. I'm not to be toyed with. He nodded and seemed relaxed despite it. I noticed. I don't intend to give you the opportunity. She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, looking him up and down to regard him. Arrogant punk. I don't see why Jiraiya seems to think so highly of you. He cocked his head. Does he? I wouldn't know. I suppose that's nice, but I don't need anyone's praise. I prefer not to be noticed. She looked up at the sky. He told me your dream is to become Hokage. Naruto didn't seem to react, and hung his head a little with his eyes closed. Dreams are for sleeping. I only care about my duty. Tsunade looked over at him. You're just a tool then? That's right. I live to serve Konohagakure. What else should a ninja be? The answer caught her off guard. She growled a little. What duty? Bringing you back to the village at the moment. Don't think that if you manage to get rid of Sakura, and you won't by the way, you'll be rid of me as well. Uzumaki remained still and relaxed, not seeming worried about the powerful Sannin glaring at him. You'll be killed. Then I will die with honor. What better end for a ninja? His voice was still even and calm. How foolish. Then again, you seem to have a habit of being foolish. You really think that girl can succeed? Are you stupid? The boy gave a nod. If it is stupid to believe it, then yes. Sakura will succeed, I'm sure of it. Tsunade turned her gaze away from him. How can you be so sure? I intend to make sure of it. If I have to run her into the ground, she'll win that bet. He sounded a little amused at the idea. Besides, what would you know of it? I know more of what she can do than you do. Why should I care what you think about it? Even if she doesn't learn in time to win your little bet, she'll master it anyway. If she fails to win that bet of yours, I'm not going to allow her to give up. The woman frowned at the answer and glanced at him again. What do you care anyway? Why did you make Jiraiya teacher? The boy looked over at her. What do you mean? The stronger she is, the more useful she'll be. I don't want to have to watch over her and protect her. Not that I have to now, but the better a ninja she is, the more I can rely on her. I can't do everything myself. Not every mission can be completed by just one shinobi, no matter how strong they are. I have no intention of carrying my teammates to victory. They need to be able to complete their missions and survive, whether I'm there to help them or not. The stronger everyone on my team is, the more successful we'll be as shinobi, and the stronger the village will be as a result. Having an ace in the hole is nice, but having people you can rely on is far more useful and important to a shinobi. I've got a trick or two that I don't share with anyone, but hoarding secrets when I can help my comrades become stronger will only hurt me in the end. The woman hung her head and crossed her arms as she leaned against the edge of the window. If she wins the bet, she'll be my apprentice. She will still be a shinobi of Konohagakure. It will be a pain to train a replacement, but what I have taught her will make the village stronger. I do not serve my team, I serve the village. My comrades are my family, as much as my son. Tsunade made a small choking sound. What? You've got a son? How old are you? He glanced at her. It's a long story. If you decide to return to Konoha, I'm sure you'll hear about it. I've no interest in sharing that with you. I don't know you. The window opened and Kira poked her head out. Oh. There you are, boss. Naruto tensed up and almost jumped off the roof, but ended up flat on his face on the tiles as the violet-haired girl snagged his ankle. Oh no you don't. Come on. It's time for your training. She was wearing very skimpy negligee and started pulling him through the window. He pulled on the edge of the roof. Wait. I should go help Sakura. She's got a lot of work to do. Kira frowned and grabbed the back of his pants. Quit whining. She'll be fine and you know it. There's nothing you can do to help her at this point. You said so yourself. You've got training of your own to do. Come on. I've got a job to do too, you know. Naruto wasn't putting up too much of a fight as she managed to wrap her arms around his waist as he gripped the edge of the window and did little more than force her to struggle a bit to pull him inside. Tsunade was just glaring at him. I knew it. You are a pervert. She jabbed her finger at him. Kira growled. I wish. I had to tie him up last time. She managed to heft him over her shoulder and he looked rather pathetic and seemed to give up. Once I get started he's fine, but I had to drug him and tie him down twice. The woman stood and stared at the scene for a moment. W. What? Sorry. He can't talk right now. He's got to train. Kira turned away from the window and dragged him towards the door of Sakura's room. He was trying to grab the carpet in a pathetic and half-hearted attempt at escape. Cut it out or I'll just throw you on that bed and do it in here. The boy gave up and seemed to relax as she carried him in a fireman's carry to the door. Damn. Tsunade growled and turned away. No wonder Jiraiya likes him. I should have known. Both of them are perverts. It explains everything. She cringed as she heard the kitsune's voice. No. You've got to be on top this time. This is training. You've got to master all of the positions. The Sannin woman decided it was best to be as far away as possible and jumped down away from the window. Sakura grunted and pulled herself up to her chin as he watched Naruto sit on a branch. Gazing up at the sky through the canopy above, he was at ease. How's that other training going? The girl hung her head and gave him a look. She grunted and got back up, saying, I've only got a day left. Then she lowered herself. I won't fail. Her teacher gave a nod. He hopped down to land on the area beneath her, saying, That's good to hear. Give me one more and come on down. 50. She moaned, getting back up and releasing her grip, tripping slightly on the landing. After a moment, the kunoichi caught her balance and dabbed at her brow. Naruto was glancing around the edge of the trees, barely noticing her. He began to jog, looking over his shoulder at her, saying, Come on, we'll do a few laps around the woods. The girl gave a small groan, but she nodded and went along. She became aware that he was glancing around, barely noticing what she was doing. What is it? The boy gave her a quick look. Nothing. It's not important. He was leading her in a fast jog, not running, and she scowled as she kept up. You look like you think we're being watched. He gave a nod. Maybe. We're not exactly trying to hide. I think someone may have noticed us, it's no big deal. Oh well. Known woman emerged from the tree line and gave them a quick glance before the two stopped. Sakura was stumbling along, hanging off her shoulder. The girl's clone ceased her jog. When Naruto paused to look at the scene, he chuckled slightly, and she scowled and knelt, gasping for air. With a hint of surprise on her face, Shizune was glancing at the other Sakura. Hey. The woman released her arm, and the one on her shoulder sagged down and appeared unhappy. Two of you? Naruto nodded. Yes, at the moment. The woman with dark hair scowled at the girl standing next to her. She shook her head, sighed heavily, and fussed at her a little, putting her hand on her hip. You're going to kill yourself over this. Making a shadow clone while you're in this condition? You've drained yourself dry trying to do that technique. The Sakura next to her nodded from the ground. I won't fail. Shizune gave Naruto a scowl. You. What are you doing running her around like this in her condition? The child inclined his head. Huh? Well, we're just doing a bit of taijutsu training and meditation. Nothing serious. The true Sakura got to her feet and pushed her back. I told you. I'm fine. I just need to rest for a bit. The more senior Kunoichi seized her once more, effectively forcing her arm across her shoulders. Cut it out. You shouldn't be trying to stand in your condition. You'll collapse and die. Idiot girl. You're not going to win that bet if you're dead. Naruto let out a little sigh. He looked at the clone, who scowled but nodded. All right. That's enough then. Go ahead and break your jutsu and get some rest. She's right, you're not going to get any more training for that technique done unless you rest. When the clone disappeared, Shizune appeared to ease up a bit more as the girl pushed off her shoulder. Sakura turned his back on her. I'm fine. I can walk, I'm not that bad off. The female gave a headshake. You're near to dead, you've burned off all your chakra. I'm taking you back to your room. I can't just leave you out here. Naruto nodded to Sakura, who appeared irritated. Go ahead. You'll be all right. We'll pick this up later after you've gotten some rest. There's no hurry. She nodded and smiled at him. You're right, there isn't. Not anymore. The elder Kunoichi rolled her eyes, looking perplexed. She took her arm and began to walk her back towards the village, saying, Stop acting tough. You're just a kid, and you're just being stubborn. Arms crossed, Naruto observed the couple as they left the scene. He stood silently for a short while and gazed up at the trees before saying, Good for her then. Did you learn anything interesting? A faint laugh escaped a shadowy voice. A bit. Noticed me, did you? The boy gave a single nod, then turned away from the voice. A while ago. You've been watching us for a couple of hours now. Is it really that interesting watching two teenagers work out? The speaker snorted. That girl is weaker than I thought she was. I'm left wondering how she became a Chunin. Naruto gave a shrug. She earned it. Tell me, what is it you're looking for, Kabuto? Though his voice had previously come from behind him, the man suddenly materialized in front of him. He put his glasses up his nose and smiled artificially, but in a nice way. Nothing much. Just keeping tabs. The youthful shinobi nodded. On what? The guy tilted his head in. Orochimaru has become interested in you. Uzumaki nodded, remaining composed. That's good to know. I suppose I'd be lying if I said I was surprised to hear that. The man with gray hair smiled. You're just going to stand there? The nin with a hood shrugged. What would you have me do? Kabuto looked at him approvingly. You do realize that? Naruto said. You're a spy? Yes. Without seeming impressed or alarmed. The senior nin gave a nod. So, you're not that foolish. You're not going to try and stop me? Naruto gave him a glance. From doing what? You're a known spy, that limits your usefulness. Besides, as far as I know, you're not a wanted man. I've got no orders to capture or kill you. I'm more interested in your boss than you anyway. The man's eyes went narrow. I see. What makes you think I'm not here to kill you? Head cocked, Naruto did. What makes you think I'd give you the opportunity? Once more, the nin with gray hair grinned. Well, aren't we cocky? The boy said calmly, not really, you're surrounded. Without moving. Kabuto looked left, then right. I noticed. In the trees behind and to his sides, there were at least 4 more of the boy's shadow clones. Not one moved to take aim at him or to subdue him. So, what do we do then? Naruto's gaze was fixed on the canopy. Well, you can leave if you like. I won't stop you. There's nothing particularly secret going on here. I'm sure your boss will be interested in what you've learned. Even if it's not much, and will be pretty common knowledge soon enough. There's no reason to bother with you. With a frown, Kabuto said, we are enemies. You do realize that, don't you? Naruto nodded. Are you trying to get me to attack you or something? I'd rather not deal with it this time if I can help it. A conversation will be more useful at this point, I think. Kabuto appeared perplexed. A conversation? How amusing. What do you want with Sasuke? The boy asked, remaining cool and friendly as usual. Kabuto gave a shrug. He's one of the Uchiha clan. His bloodline is powerful, and he's got untapped potential. We want him. Naruto gave a nod. You think he might join you? With a laugh, the man nodded. Of course. We know he will. We can give him something you can't. He'll be ours soon enough, there's nothing you can do about it. The hooded ninja nodded and held his composure. Revenge against his brother Itachi? Kabuto gave a nod. So, you know about that. The juvenile nin nodded. Yes. I've met Itachi. Very powerful, why Sasuke and not him? Itachi seems more like the kind of man who might be interested in that sort of thing. Sasuke won't join you. He's an emo prick sometimes, but it's not in him. The nin with gray hair laughed. You'd be surprised. Naruto gave a nod. Maybe. What makes you think you can give him what he wants? Kabuto snorted as he leaned against one of the tree trunks. He'll join us, whether he wants to or not. We're not really giving him a choice. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Well, fighting over it now would be pointless. He's not here. You'll have to take him by force. The guy tilted his head in. Hit a soft spot, did I? You intend to stand in our way? The ninja in a hood nodded. Of course. You said yourself that we're enemies. Right now, attacking you would gain nothing. I'm not about to let you walk away with my friends either. The man gave a headshake. He'll come to us on his own. You're just holding him back. Staying with you will never get him what he wants. He's weak, and he'll stay weak as long as he's in Konoha. He'll realize it soon enough. Naruto gave a headshake. He smirked under his mask, no. I intend to make him strong, whether he likes it or not. I think he'll enjoy it. Kabuto laughed a little. You? He asked, laughing and cocking his head back. You? You make him strong? What would you know of it? How do you intend to do that? Naruto gave a headshake. He'll never overpower Itachi, even if he's stronger. I've met his brother, and he's a cunning opponent. The only way to defeat a man like him is to outsmart him. Your master can't give him what he wants. I can. The spies appeared to be entertained. How foolish. You intend to give him his revenge then? Uzumaki cast his gaze downward. Does he want revenge, or does he really want to be stronger than his brother, better than him? Kabuto pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose once more, saying, his hatred has already consumed him. You just don't see it yet. It will only get stronger. He wants to be stronger than his brother, but he wants it so he can have his revenge. Naruto inclined his head and appeared to consider the matter. He kept his thoughts to himself and remained silent. I can't trust Sasuke as he is now. He went off the deep end when he met his brother, and it almost got us all killed. We might have been able to catch Itachi, or that friend of his if he'd not blown his top like that. Kabuto became aware of his quiet. You know it's true. You can't save your friend. Naruto raised his gaze. I will do whatever I have to. I will not fail, and I will not allow you to have him. The man's expression darkened. Even if it means killing him? Without responding, Naruto turned back to face the ground. You won't turn him. I know him well enough. Kabuto gave him a slight frown as he eyed him. Do you really? The young man gave a nod. Of course. He's my teammate, my rival, and my friend. I would rather help him get his revenge myself, than allow you to use it to take him away from the people who care about him. Kabuto snickered. Pathetic. Don't make promises you can't keep. You could never make him strong enough to defeat Itachi. You're just a boy, and your overconfidence is pathetic and uninspiring. Naruto gave a headshake. I am a Junin of the Leaf. I don't make promises I cannot keep. The spies laughed. We'll see. Sasuke isn't the only reason we're interested in you. You'll die, and that pet of yours with you. Then, the mother will take care of Konohagakure for us. Naruto knelt down and pulled out his sword. Kabuto looked chuckled. Didn't you say you weren't interested in fighting? I thought this was just a talk. Naruto said in a calm, even tone, I had no reason to attack you before, but now you've gone and given me one. It was clear he was furious. The more senior nin balled up his fists and gave him a grin that appeared somewhat insane. How are you going to protect your friend if you're dead? The boy angled his blade at a 45-degree angle behind his back and put his fingers up in front of his face. The boy vanished in a cloud of smoke, saying, I told you already. I don't intend to give you the opportunity to kill me. Kabuto unwinded and took a look around. He turned around and delivered an open palm strike. Well, we'll see how well you do then. I was hoping to get the opportunity to kill you myself. Orochimaru would rather not bother with it himself. The boy in the hood struck a tree with his left arm first, leaving it limp while he recovered. The older nin moved to stab 2 fingers at his chest, but as he moved from the bushes surrounding him, 6 kunai crossed his path, forcing him to duck and kick back, rolling over his shoulders. As Naruto leapt into the canopy and disappeared into the branches, the spy narrowed his eyes at the wounded character. The sound nin jumped up. I see, so you were just bait then. A pair of hands emerged from the ground at his feet and threw a kunai into the ground. He landed on an overhead tree branch, and the hands disappeared. Regretfully, the branch failed to support him. With wide, enraged eyes, he looked over his shoulder just in time to see Naruto stowing his sword over his shoulder. Twisting as he fell, Kabuto barely avoided getting sliced in half by the 2 clones that leapt from the bushes, trying to catch him mid-air with their blades. He kicked one of the hooded leaf nin and struck the other in the belly with an open palm strike, tossing them both aside. When he hit the earth, they both disappeared. He squatted over the ground, growling as a metal game trap snapped closed right under his nose. Little punk. With a violent thrust of his legs, the sound spy leapt backwards and nearly severed his head when a black blur emerged from the surrounding bushes. At the peak of his jump, he threw 3 kunai and landed with his hands ready to seal. Kabuto continued to work his hands to prepare his jutsu, and as soon as his feet touched the ground, he began to rush sideways. With his hand on the sword at his back and his pace at his sides, Naruto had materialized both in front of and behind him. Kabuto's arms worked in a blur as he completed his jutsu and slid to a stop, spinning in place. Naruto stopped and attempted to leap back, knocking a few kunai out of the air. The spy struck the 2 Naruto clones multiple times with his fingers and palms. The 2 Kage Bunshin were flung back, with minor wounds and lesions on their arms, legs, and necks. They both disappeared in puffs of smoke after a moment of trying to move because their limbs had gone limp. Glancing over, Kabuto shoved his glasses up his nose. He turned and called to the wood, Fei. The coward. What's the matter? Afraid to face me yourself? Why would I? It would be stupid of me to take a risk like that. No point in sticking my neck out needlessly. Why should I give you an opportunity like that? I mean really. Why should I give up my advantage just to be fair? If I cared about fair, I'd be a samurai. There's no good reason to risk giving you an opportunity. I'd rather win than be fair, after all, I am a ninja. 10 Naruto suddenly surrounded him, half in, half out of cover, and Kabuto growled. He was obviously not going to rush him right away. Once they had spoken, each one slipped away. The final survivor emerged into the daylight. He prepared to attack again but did not charge his opponent. Now, shall we continue? I'm afraid I can't allow you to live or escape. You're too dangerous. I'll be seeing your boss soon enough. Kabuto laughed, squinting his eyes. I'm sure. When you do, you'll die. Do you really think you can kill me myself now? The boy asked, setting himself up and grabbing his sword once more. The man grinned. He threw a smoke bomb at his feet and disappeared, saying, another time then. Observing, Naruto saw that none of his clones had witnessed him go. One had a neck wound and fell from the canopy, disappearing before it hit the ground. Slippery bastard. I'll see him again. He and his extra clones disappeared up the drain. Naruto was sitting close to the top of a tree, reclining on a branch and leaning against the trunk. He opened his closed eyes to cast a quick glance off to the east. Perhaps sooner than he thinks. Hey. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Not like that. Naruto exclaimed as he retreated, pushing a pair of hands away from the front of his pants. Attempting to draw him towards her and undo his belt, the young, nude girl was on her knees in front of his crotch. Oh, don't be such a baby. It'll be fun. I know this appeals to you. I can tell you no, you can't fool my nose. You're definitely attracted to this. In a frozen moment, Naruto turned to face the door. Shit. The girl gave the person who had interrupted a quick blink of her eyes and a smile. Hey. Great. Maybe she'll help out this time? With her jaw hanging in the doorway, Haruno Sakura stood. What the? With his eyes wide, Naruto was gazing at her while blushing. He waved his hands in front of his face and exclaimed, it wasn't my idea. I swear. In front of him was a naked woman on her knees who looked like a clone of Sakura. What? Are you saying you don't find this appealing? The boy turned to face the naked Sakura and angrily exclaimed, no. Don't look like people I know. It's creepy. Sakura was just observing, her hand clenched around the wooden frame of the door. The wood squeaked, split, and broke. Gazing at the still, mute kunoichi in the doorway, Naruto exclaimed, will you hurry up and change back? I said no. You're gonna get me killed. Sakura, who was naked, scratched her cheek and furrowed her brow. Huh? Well, if you say so. Are you sure? Maybe she could join us? It would help with the training. Sakura's eyes closed slightly and a vein pulsed on her forehead, then another. Naruto curled his arm around Kira's throat and bailed out the window, saying, oh man. Huh? What are you? Gak. The outer wall of the room blew up, raining debris down on the hooded nin as he landed in the street and dragged the kitsune behind him. As the boy carried her down the road, her feet were kicking and her face was starting to get a bit blue. Boss. You're choking. Gak. Me. Run, you idiot. Sakura was chasing after them, a barrel hefted over her head, saying, both of you. Die. Perverts. How dare you? What the hell were you doing anyway? Kira was running alongside Naruto after managing to stand up. I'm guessing this means she doesn't want to help out then? Naruto glared at her and pumped his legs as quickly as he could, saying, shut up and run. Pervert. That evening, as they sat around the table eating dinner, Sakura glared and growled at Naruto. Her chopsticks were held a little too tightly, and her hair was tangled and sticking up in a few places. All the boy did was shrug at her. Well, I can no longer dispute that. Give up glaring at me. I didn't come up with the original idea. With Kira's assistance, he was able to lose her and disappear. She had changed back into a fox and concealed them both by creating the illusion that they were rocks. She took hold of his shirt. You should have said no. I did say no. He shoved her hand away in response. I was in the middle of explaining why it was a bad idea to her when you showed up. With her nose in the air, Kira was tapping her foot and averting her gaze. In any case, why do you care? You didn't really need to interrupt. The girl's gaze quivered. Isn't he married to your queen or whatever? The kitsune gave a shrug. Yes. Whose idea was this, in your opinion, initially? I'm here to teach him so he can perform with competence. How come you think I've been here for so long? Sakura took a deep breath and gave the boy a wide-eyed stare. Are you kidding? Naruto gave a headshake. Not really. I think I've risen to the top among perverts. That's how every kitsune I've met is. Jiraiya nodded and spoke. I fear he is correct. A few others I've met were just like your friends. It's not too horrible. Sakura let out a growl. Look, you use your own body and leave mine out of it, you little tramp. She leaned in to give Kira a glower. I doubted you would give a damn. I'm sorry, geez. She blushed a little and avoided looking at her. Are you certain you want to avoid lending a hand? I doubt he would object. Leave me out of this. Naruto gave the fox girl a scowl. I can't believe you're going along with this. Sakura jabbed at Naruto with her chopsticks. I thought better of you. The young man gave a nod. And, to be honest, so did I. It's unavoidable, I suppose, nonetheless. After all, I am the king. What? Sakura shifted her position away from him, raising an eyebrow. Gross. Jiraiya laughed. He's not wrong, you know. It would be best if he simply gave up. Naruto appeared irritated. Hey. Don't phrase it that way. I've just accepted my fate, not given up on anything. Right. Kira nodded, appearing pleased. Simply put, we're more liberal than people. In Fire Country especially, you are such a prude. What the big deal is about humans and sex, I don't understand. It feels wonderful. Sakura let out a growl. You risk becoming ill by deceiving yourself. What about illnesses? And if you become pregnant, what then? Kira threw back her head. This body is merely a delusion. With a kitsune, you can't get sick, so I guess I'd have to try getting pregnant. With our kind, it's not something that can occur by accident. At least not in the human form. He doesn't need to worry about anything, not even birth control. What makes a difference? This has no negative aspects. Sakura gave a blink. What? Naruto appeared equally taken aback. Huh? Jiraiya gave a serious look and nodded. You know, she's not wrong. He has an obligation to his people and will be all right. He ought to try his hardest to comprehend them. By studying their culture, he is not breaking any rules. Indeed, if he is to be their king, it is part of his duty. With a furrowed brow, Naruto appeared to consider that. Hey, how come you didn't say that earlier? If you had told me all of that earlier, you wouldn't have run into such difficulties. The kitsune gave a blink. What? You were unaware? He gave a headshake. Why would I do that? I met the queen for the first time among kitsunes. Sakura appeared even more irritated. Disgusting. Once more, Naruto shrugged at her. I apologize. It made me anxious, I must say, but given the circumstances, it's not a big deal. What difference does it make? I thought everyone was smitten with Sasuke. What I do matters to you, why? You leave me out of your perversions. She hissed a little and gave him a glare. She looked away, flushed a little. Sasuke isn't like that at all. He gave a nod. I already informed her of that. It wasn't my original idea. To be honest, I find it a little unsettling. What? Are I really that creepy? The girl's voice became a bit agitated. Naruto let out a little sigh. You're not the problem. You're not ugly in my opinion at all. I know it's not you, but for some reason, it feels strange that way. He gave a slight shudder. I would prefer that she not initially imitate people I know. Would you please back off? Sakura looked up at him and appeared to calm down. All right. I give up. There's no point in arguing. I'll tear off your arms and legs if I catch you trying to mimic me in that way once more. She scowled at Kira as she leaned over. Yes, indeed. I understand. I had no idea you were so delicate. What difference does it make? Please stay out of our affairs if you don't want to assist with the training. The kitsune gave her a nod. I won't do it if you're that passionate about it. Nevertheless, he needs experience working with various body types, so eventually I'll need to enlist additional assistance. We have a few festivals that are centered around orgies, and it is a part of our culture. At some point, he will have to deal with it. Sakura momentarily choked on a mouthful of food and began to cough. What? That is. Gazing upon the kitsune, her thoughts returned to Masara and Kurama. I don't want to know, never mind. Simply shut up and move on. With slightly reddened eyes, Naruto stared down at his plate without answering. Lucky bastard, Jiraiya muttered to himself. With a tiny sigh, Naruto appeared to shake his feelings. He dismissed it because he didn't want to think about it right now. Could we discuss something else? As much as I hate to say it, what I do is really none of your business. You know, it shouldn't affect our work. We still need to collaborate and work as a team. Just because I've accepted my destiny as the king of the perverts doesn't mean anything is different now. Well, king of the kitsune anyway. Kira let out a little sigh. You still act out and complicate things when it comes to training, you know. Don't start referring to yourself as the pervert king just yet. There is still some work for you to do. Naruto gave a headshake. Not really. You should know that if I really wanted to, I could get away with it pretty easily. I only complicate things because, if I didn't, you would constantly be dragging me off, and I would never finish anything else. He used his chopsticks to pinch her nose. I won't be your personal sex toy, even though you're cute and everything. I don't mind too much, or I wouldn't let you, but I have work and other obligations to attend to. I'm just trying to make things hard for you so that you won't feel like you have any sort of power over me. She reddened and leaned close to him, caressing his chest with her finger. No, master. I am your private erotic object. Sakura made gagging noises and stuck her finger in her mouth. Gross. Jiraiya was wiping his face with a handkerchief while sobbing with pride. Naruto, how much you've grown. How proud your father would be. You know, I've got my doubts about that. The boy appeared mildly irritated. King of the perverts, how fitting. Sakura prodded her rice bowl, muttering to herself. Naruto, you did great. You now comprehend the actual principles of manliness as my pupil. I, Jiraiya the Great Sage, am honored to have you as one of my seductive manhood students. You now genuinely recognize the worth and virtue of projecting a manly charm and resisting women's advances in favor of making them yield to a real man's advances. The man appeared quite pleased as he balled up his fist. Though Naruto's expression dimmed slightly, he chose to give the man his chance. Yes, of course. I suppose thanks. Kira tilted her head, appearing to consider that. I wouldn't quite put it that way, though. The first few times, I had to drug him and tie him up. Sakura turned her head quickly. What? Naruto gave her a shrug. I had the option to flee. She didn't start until after I woke up. I'm not angry or upset about it, so it's not a big deal. With a slight sigh, the girl with pink hair hung her head. Anyhow. Could we perhaps shift the topic? I'm going to throw up all of the food I just ate if I hear about how manly you were once more. She gave him a narrowed look. You're not as manly as Sasuke. Kira was resting on his arm, caressing his shoulder with her cheek. Keep telling yourself that, and it will still never be true. Sakura bit her tongue despite growling. Ino, please stop talking. You're not contributing, she muttered to herself. Jiraiya took a sip of sake and let himself go. After finishing his meal, he appeared to be content to unwind until Sakura and Naruto were done. So, how is your training going? The kunoichi began to utter some words. Well, Time's up. With a sly smile on her face, Tsunade turned to face the group. She was glaring at the group, her hand on her hip. Have you failed, too? In case he asks you that. With a frown, the girl got up from her seat. Stop being so arrogant. I have not yet lost. Tsunade felt Shizune's hand on her shoulder. Please take it easy. She is only a young child. Tsunade gave her a dead stare. Unless you can prove to me that you've mastered Rasengan right now, you've lost. Naruto got up and made his way across the street to the door. Alright, let's get going. Then, let's finish this up. He was walking away with Kira dangling from his arm. Jiraiya took a head tilt. Huh. He appears unconcerned. When he turned to face Sakura, he saw that she was scowling at Tsunade and paying no attention to anything else. Tsunade gave him a scowl. Tell her to give up and just shut up. You can be certain that she hasn't. With a shrug, he turned to face his fellow Sannin. I don't know what to do. I haven't been monitoring her. Naruto has been overseeing her training on his own since he mastered the technique. As Sakura passed by Shizune, the woman with dark hair observed her passing by. I ran across them, she was almost dead from exhaustion and I helped her back to her room the other day. Tsunade gave her a quick glance back and squinted. The woman turned to face the ground, flushed. What? Which side do you support? Shizune appeared somewhat agitated. I didn't assist her in beating you. I've just returned her safely to the hotel. In the woods, I discovered him with a shadow clone of her. They were training in taijutsu. They didn't appear to be preparing in any way for Rasengan, which is odd. That's not how it appeared, at least. Sakura stood by the door, her hand on her hips as she glared at Tsunade. Are you coming or not? Sakura was standing in the street across from Tsunade. So, are you ready? The female raised a finger. The girl with pink hair nodded. I'll show you then. Tsunade laughed. Using the technique alone is insufficient. You haven't learned it if you can't use it to your advantage in combat. Like I said earlier, I'll beat you with a single finger. You lose if you're not even able to pull it off. Sakura nodded, balling her fist. Let's go then. Tsunade posed a head tilt. Anytime you're ready. The girl disappeared from her line of sight. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and gasped. Something is different. She glanced around, appearing slightly perplexed rather than anxious. Naruto laughed at the scene, leaning against a nearby wall and appearing quite at ease. Interesting. Jiraiya inclined towards him. Can she now perform Rasengan? I never received a response. The young man gave a nod. Yes. It is her second day of having it. However, I'm curious as to what she did with it. I'm not sure. Jiraiya appeared momentarily perplexed. What she did with it? The boy appeared to be happy. Observe. I'm curious to learn more about myself. Tsunade had heard, and she muttered a growl. She pivoted and moved to one side. Sakura emerged from the shadows at her back, a ball of chakra floating slightly in front of her outstretched palm. Sakura was rolled onto her side in the dust by the Sannin woman with a mere flick of her finger. Damn. She stumbled to her feet just in time to witness the woman storming ahead. Sakura ducked as Tsunade jabbed her finger at the girl once more, but Sakura managed to avoid it. With a spin, the young kunoichi struck the Sannin's forearm with a kick. Tsunade grinned. It was clear that the attack was primarily intended to make her give the girl a place to land a flip and propel herself into the air to create space between them. Wise, but insufficiently so. This time, no clones? Not able to perform that while on Rasengan? She flipped up high in the air, her gaze fixed on Sakura. The woman braced herself to swing at the girl. Sakura was contorted, offering her back while concealing her hands behind her. When the Rasengan approached the girl, Tsunade was ready to dodge it and then knock her out of the air. She was unprepared for the girl to wave her arms, launch the ball straight towards her before she had even lifted off the ground. Whoa! Jiraiya watched in shock. She threw it? The attack gouged a massive crater into the ground, forcing Tsunade to growl and leap back. It was deep and 4 feet wide. Wah? A set of feet landed in the middle of her forehead as she looked up. Tsunade didn't lose her balance or her footing, but she also didn't manage to catch Sakura as the girl landed on the opposite side of her crater in a crouch with a kunai in her grip after flipping off her forehead. What? You little brat. I'll. Jiraiya was standing between them with his back to Tsunade and his hands on Sakura's shoulders. That's enough. Tsunade, you lost. The woman looked at him and gasped. What? Jiraiya chuckled and looked over his shoulder with his most suave-looking grin. Your challenge has been met. This girl has proven she can use Rasengan in a fight. Not even I could throw one. I'd never even thought of trying it before. The woman was standing and shaking with her fists balled up. I lost? This girl. She glanced at Naruto. He looked quite pleased. Yes. That means that you've got to teach her now, doesn't it? Where did you learn how to do that? The woman turned her eyes towards Sakura. The young Kunoichi tossed her hair. Team 7 has a rule. Every technique you learn, you master, and then you take the next step. You learn to make it your own. Naruto nodded and walked up to congratulate her. Good job. I never thought about throwing one of them. Jiraiya seemed surprised. You didn't help her with that? The boy shook his head. No. I was working on my own thing. The man slapped his shoulder and seemed pleased. What's that? I call it the Rasengan lockpick. He raised a finger and a tiny ball of chakra formed on the tip of his index. It made a small whirring noise similar to a dentist drill, but not quite as loud. I figure it'll open just about any locked door or chest, and it doesn't take much chakra at all. It was kind of a pain in the butt to get it so small, but I don't need to use near as much chakra to do it. Sakura arched her eyebrow. Hey, that is pretty cool. I figured it's kind of hard to charge one of these and sneak up on someone with it. It takes too long, and it's too much noise to charge it right behind or next to someone without them noticing it. So I figured if I could toss one, it would be much more useful. Naruto nodded. Yeah. I was having the same problem with it. It's very strong, and I suppose I can use it if I get caught in a jam where I'm forced to face someone head-on. Still, it's got a big charge time and makes a lot of noise. I was hoping that something a bit smaller would make less noise. It's still too loud for a stealth attack, but I can charge it much faster. Still, the only real use I can think of for it is ripping up a lock on a door or something. It's too small to really hurt anyone seriously, unless I put one in just the right place. He seemed pleased with himself. More a tool than a weapon. I'm sure I'll get plenty of use out of it. It's much faster than picking a lock. Though, it will also destroy the lock in the process. Tsunade was looking on at the scene. She remained silent and had her head hung down a little. Shizune moved up and put her hands on her shoulders. Tsunade. I. The woman looked up at the girl again. You know. I should run away. Her companion lowered her eyes and remained quiet. They would follow me though. They wouldn't give up. She bit her lip. I should kill them. Kira, the fox girl, turned her head to frown at her. She was hanging off Naruto's back. Jiraiya walked up with a bit of swagger to his step. Thinking about running away, or killing them. Which is it? The woman glanced at him. I'd never forgive myself if I killed those kids. Not over something like this. I lost, and even if I ran away from my debt, I couldn't live down just getting rid of them because of it. She hung her head. I won't get rid of them if I run, will I? The man gave a small sigh and shook his head. I'm afraid not. She nodded and glanced over at the pair. The future of Konoha doesn't seem as bleak as I remember it. The white-haired man nodded. I'm just a messenger working on behalf of the village. I'm not officially one of the nin, and I've got no obligation to bring you back. I've done my part just giving you the message. He scratched at the side of his face as he leaned against the wall next to her. What are you going to do? She looked at the pink-haired girl who walked up. She had her arms crossed and a serious frown on her face. You lost. The Sannin woman nodded. So I did. So, when do we start? You show me how to be a medical ninja. You show me how to fix my friend on my own. You're not getting rid of me until you do. Shizune giggled a bit, The girl looked so serious. Tsunade looked annoyed. That's no way to talk to your teacher, young lady. She stood up tall and glared down at the girl. I said I'd make you my apprentice, and that's what I'm going to do. You're not getting off so easily after humiliating me this way. Fix your friend. She gave a snort and continued, I've got a lot more than that to shove down your pretty little throat whether you like it or not. Now that I've got you under my thumb, you're going to learn everything I feel like teaching you. Got it? She lifted the pink-haired girl up by her shirt and put her nose up to hers. Sakura had gotten very wide-eyed and worked her mouth open and closed rather like a fish. Her face went hard. I don't care what it takes. As long as Ino is cured, I'll do anything. I won't run away from my part in the deal. Tsunade dropped her and gave a small sigh. All right then. We'll head back to Konohagakure tomorrow. It's as good a place as any, and she'll have need of the library there anyway. Naruto gave a small sigh and looked over his shoulder. He narrowed his eyes as he saw a shadow in the distance on a rooftop move his arm as if to push his glasses up his nose before sliding back into the darkness. He ignored it and turned back towards the scene. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes at Kabuto as his spy stood before him. The brat is a Junin? He was seated in a chair in his quarters, lounging as his subordinate stood in front of him giving his report of recent events. His servant nodded. So it would seem. The Sannin, Tsunade, has returned to Konoha with them. It seems the girl is to become her student. Orochimaru frowned but cocked his head. That's interesting. I've not seen her in many years. Still, it's of no particular importance. It should do nothing to change our plans. Yes, I thought it was only of mild interest, but thought you might like to know. Who knows, it may be useful one day. His spy nodded. The boy is very strong, nothing I can't handle though. Still, Jiraiya was protecting him, and he's difficult to draw out into the open. He prefers to fight with shadow clones as opposed to risking his own neck. I believe that is the real reason the Four had so much difficulty dealing with him. He uses them to run his opponents around in circles and distract them away from the real him. I doubt I even saw the real him while I was there. The Sannin nodded. What did you learn of why they wanted to speak with Tsunade? Kabuto seemed to consider it for a moment. It seems there was an unusual injury during the exams of some sort. They seem to be interested in hiring her as an expert. However, I suspect that the third wishes to speak with her regarding his retirement as well. I overheard a little that suggests that, but could not get close enough to verify it. Orochimaru frowned a bit. Really? Well, we are speaking of two of the legendary three. I do not think little of myself, but I'm hardly worthy to consider myself within such company. It was difficult to stay close enough to gather that much information without getting caught. Naruto is a master spy, and his presence made things more difficult than I anticipated as well. I'm pretty sure he came close to spotting me on more than one occasion. Orochimaru chuckled. Did he? Kabuto nodded. He's intelligent, difficult to track, observant, and it may be best to be rid of him. He's likely to be a problem in the future. The Sannin nodded. If you get the chance, kill him. His spy nodded. Of course. He paused. What is our next move? Uchiha is our primary goal at the moment. The fox brat is of little concern at the moment. I agree, it's best to be rid of him. However, let's not forget our goal. He's in Konoha with Kakashi. There's not much to report, he's training in the village with him as we speak. Nothing out of the ordinary, he seems to be preparing him for his Anbu training, though it's not officially started yet. He's to be inducted into the Anbu with his two teammates when they return. However, the girl may or may not be with them, as she's now Tsunade's student. It may be a while before an opportunity presents itself. Orochimaru nodded. This body will do for a while yet. We've got time to create an opportunity of our own still. No point in rushing things. I'll see what I can do, of course. Is there anything else you wish to know? His master waved his hand and settled into his seat. Not at the moment. I'll summon you if I need anything. Kabuto nodded. Then I shall return to my work. He turned away. Orochimaru stood up with a wicked-looking smile on his face. Kabuto, one more thing. The gray-haired nin paused and looked over his shoulder. Yes? Orochimaru kicked him dead in his rear and sent him sprawling on the ground on his belly. Hey. The spy looked confused and nervous and didn't dare pick himself up. What did I? Orochimaru reached down and ripped a page off his back, letting it drop down to the ground in front of Kabuto's face. Nothing, I just couldn't resist. The gray-haired nin looked at it in shock. He growled and narrowed his eyes as he picked up the "kick me" sign and crumpled it up in his hands. What? When did? He stood up and calmed as he found himself standing in the room alone as Orochimaru left him, chuckling to himself. I see. You'll pay for that, Naruto. He tossed it into a nearby wastebasket and walked out of the room to see to his duties.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.